Yeah, you know how it is. Another watching rock and roll, yours truly. It is July 3rd and I got some books. George Patton was my wife in a past life, as he believed, as I believe in reincarnations. 2600 years ago, one of my favorite poems is written by George Patton, Through a Glass Darkly. Special edition for the Empire. Adrian Hanna Dragon, Rainbow Dragon General. Dragon on the toes, auctioning everything that I'm wearing. And I got this other book, Dictionary of American Slang. Was born in the United States 3 times, post 1776, once as a woman, twice as a man, served in the same United States Armed Forces. 2 different wars, 156 years apart. And here I gotta commence, begin with my gratitude. Grateful, thankful, my rent's paid, electricity bills paid, got food and coffee. And I always admire those who build buildings like this one. Construction workers, if you worked on this building here, now I'm already more than 2 hours in my march. I'm not in my neighborhood, but I'm still in my island. On the island of the Hawk. H-A-W-K, Hawk Island, Montreal. Rock and roll construction workers, I need you, of course, to build the North American People's Imperial People's Coliseum. And got a third book. The bankers. Actually, it's written in the 70s, but I guess a lot of our things are still relevant post 1944, right? The Bretton Woods system, although we spent on that fiat, now we're on the fiat type of currency, but some changes, still that old school rock and roll, how the things we go. And another book, Think and Grow Rich. So those 4 I'm gonna hit by next week, over the weekend, Sabbath. Today's Thursday. So I got 4 books to read, a few chapters each. I can do it in 72 hours, I guess. I can read 4 books, man. Maybe 4 days. 1 book each day, 5 days, I guess, 6. Next week, 7 days, I guess. Between 4 days and 11 days, I can do it.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. That's a good job.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. On my bag, and I got that covered with the orange there. I got to cover it unless it's got some rain. Where I was, it was raining, so that's why I got the cover back. And so I got to put on that backpack and make sure that it doesn't rain on it. So I got to make sure that I don't get rain internally, because I got a little bit of that document which needs to be properly salvaged, properly maintained. Turn your heads left and right before you cross the street, and encouraging all to work out, train, exercise. And I think that was my auntie, uncles, cousins here, my great family, Quebec, North American Collectif. 10 provinces, 50 states, and the 10 plus 50 plus 3. That's always 63, and that's always how we go. And I guess enough of my face, maybe. Had enough of my face. Androgynous, pansexual, artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, and mystic, and independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and strategist. Always for the baker, always for the butchers, always for the nurses, always for the doctors, always for the grocery store clerks, always for the firefighters. Somebody gotta sing that rock and roll for the boys and girls in blue. Ain't nobody perfect. That includes that me and you. And of course, for another, and those who do their criminal rehabilitation as well. You know, I gotta sing it for them, and I gotta sing it, of course, for those who do their criminal rehabilitation as well, as I sing for my brothers and sisters in blue. And I see that it's starting to get a little bit of that rainy day. So we're gonna go, of course, to the left, to the right, to the nurses, to the doctors, to the grocery store clerks, to all those, of course, those who make it on the grocery store clerks now, of course, you know. Gotta get it on the go, and gotta be partners in this great civilizational complex, you know. That we are for what we gotta do. And that's why I gotta get that rock and roll, and gotta get it for the left, for the right, for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, the bakers, the truckers on the road, the construction workers, you know. You get that Wall Street illusions, eh? You get that Wall Street illusions, give some charity, millionaires, billionaires, mass finance, capital for the empire, 63. And now we're gonna put the big backpack on the back. See, that's what we're gonna get doing with that. That's what we're gonna get doing on that XYZ, you know. You gotta get it on the trail, you gotta get it on those vitamins, and you gotta get those minerals, and you gotta get those butchers, those bakers, those nurses, those doctors, those firefighters, the plumbers, and the electricians, you know. And that's how we rock and roll. Here we go. Make sure the back ride is on. Financially still stressed. Yeah? Let me see if I can have some change. Because I'm broke, you know. You're in a good place here, eh?
What do you mean? I'm in a good place.
I mean, population, there's a lot of population passing.
I'm in a good place in myself. I'm a good person. I'm a positive person. So are you.
Yeah, well, I've been through hell and back, buddy.
Well, if you've been to hell,
Was depressed, suicidal,
just getting to hell in
depressed,
the first
suicidal.
place, it's a pretty it's a trip.
Not a lot.
Getting
but-
back,
There you go.
whatever it is more than I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Take care, buds. Yeah, a little bit of charity. I went broke. But my rent's paid, electricity bills paid, got food and coffee, you know, so that's how I gotta drill it, you know, for the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. So where are we gonna go now? We're gonna go, of course, on the drill and on the drill and on the go, and that's how we're gonna get it on the XYZ for the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, electricians, the plumbers, cleaning workers. Hey, look at those public workers that they did a good job there embellishing a little bit, and that's all we got here. We're gonna go to see who made it to the gymnasium. And all the beauties there. Look at those beauties. So gotta salute the public workers. I see there's some public work there right ahead. So rock and roll for them 24/7 for those public workers on the go and on the know. Hey, some more beautiful flowers. So it's always Arbeit. But you know the problem with me is that I have Asperger's, and that's not a problem for me anymore. It was for years and years. Although this Asperger condition, I've been learning to integrate it and accept it and always build bridges with neurotypical. So I'm gonna just explain now that I'm on the topic what is, of course, Asperger's. And Asperger's, of course, is a neurodivergence. It's not a mental illness. It is, of course, a neurodivergent. It makes me predisposed to special interest, and that's all we gotta get doing on that. And gotta wait for the bus here. Not the bus necessarily, but for the bus stop. I guess you got a bus stop here, but you also gotta check that 63, and of course the number 63 is significant because it's always for the empire of the dragon, the dancing goddess, and the dragon kingdom, always for the imperial 63 legions, which we're gonna create integrated with all existing security forces apparatuses. We're gonna integrate the 10, the 50, and the 3, and that's how we're gonna go now. And always for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, all involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those, of course, now cooking some hamburgers, some cheeseburgers, all of that work that's happening now across the 63, the 10 provinces, 50 states and 3 territories, which we're going to fuse my way best via my Trinity of TVs and integrate, of course, and apply the great bipolar, not to be confused with the psychological psychiatric condition, but bipolar as, of course, in the bipolar geopolitical strategy for the North American collective, total dominion and total dominance. As we're gonna go now, we're gonna cross the street, and we got those 25, and that's how we're gonna get it on the go. And for my brothers and sisters making a little smile there, I always love to get a smile and a nod. Some people, I guess, they know a little bit of that good loving dragon love, and that's how we gotta get loving for them. And here we go down, and I gotta admire. Look at that rust. Gotta take a minute to sing that rock and roll for the public workers. Look at that rust. That looks rusty. Probably that's from the 70s or 60s. So we got a lot of work, all this work done. You know, this is important work. That's why we got clean. That's why you can drink water, eh? Otherwise we wouldn't have clean water to drink. We'll be drinking from the river, eh? We're going to drink from the river. But nonetheless, this is so important. This, look how rusty it is. So I gotta congratulate them and give a little bit of rock and roll. That must be from the 50s, maybe 60s, 70s. See how rusty it is, and it's well done that they did it. Otherwise, we'd be drinking water from the river. You know, drinking water. Civilization is a privilege. So it's something that it is, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta be applauding a little bit of that loving, man. That's what I got. Rock and roll. I'm financially stressed, but I always, of course, march for the North American Collective rehabilitation. Of course, I've been advocating, of course, for the North American rehabilitation, of course, to give it on the go and to give it on the left and on the right and in the center. And I always salute those who did all this work here. Of course, I don't know all the technicalities, all the work that's been done, all the labor, but I do know that it's crucial myself, of course, having this work for me to drink potable water, right? Although I filter it, but to take a bath and, you know, other people drink and take a bath and etc. So public workers, rock and roll, see how rusty it is. This is probably more than 44 years old, more than 45, close to 45 maybe, close to 45, maybe even more than that. I don't know, I'm speculating, but look, rusty. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's the labor, Arbeit, and I'm all about work. But you know, my situation is that I have Asperger's, so with Asperger's it's more difficult. This neurodivergence makes me, of course, predisposed to special interest, and I'm just gonna discuss Asperger's for a minute, because I have Asperger's, also known as HFA or high functioning autism, but also, of course, I use the word appellation Asperger's, and Asperger's is something which, of course, is that mental divergence, and that mental divergence makes me, of course, predisposed to certain characteristics, as many aspects we share in common, which can be pretty weird, awkward, and sometimes we're super intense, super concentrated, super dedicated, especially when we endeavor to work in our special interest, also known as obsessive interest, although utilizing the word obsessive is not functional for me because it doesn't serve any justice, doesn't render justice to fellow Aspies, nor to myself as an individual, part of the Asperger community, not to be overly academic, intellectual in what Asperger's is, just to know that it's not a mental illness, not a mental illness, not a mental illness. It's not a mental illness, it's not a mental illness, and that's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get going with that, and that's how we gotta get doing on the drill with that, and it's rock and roll, you know, so 24/7, you know. For the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, and those involved in the production, distribution of food, and that's how we gotta get that rock and roll, you know. For the firefighters, all those involved in those productions. Oh, imagine just to build this bridge, eh? Civilization is a privilege. Just to build this bridge, you know, so taking labor, and Arbeit, and of course, my work has been very intense, concentrated, super dedicated in my field, as I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, and in geopolitics, and of course, it is something which you have to be prudent, and of course, have to be mindful, of course, that we're gonna get that rock and roll as we're gonna turn our heads left and right here, left and right. Sun's gonna pierce those clouds, and yes, my favorite color, look at those beauties. Thank you, public workers. What are poppies? Poppies. There's rare in Montreal, but they're actually poppies, see? Poppies, yeah, they're poppies. See, I think this gives that, right, to make heroin. I do not, of course, advocate any drug consumptions my own, but I think that's the bulb, right? From what I know. These are poppies, right? The seeds can be eaten, you know. I love poppy strudels, poppies, anything to do with poppies on them. Poppies, the black seeds there, the poppies, and I love to eat those strudels with it. And of course, it's something that I enjoy as a culinary, but I don't do drugs myself. You know, I have cannabis at home. Cannabis I have. It's been years, you know, since last time I bought. I actually bought, it hasn't been since 2001, 4 years since I last purchased. And now I purchased a little bit Montreal made on special, and I still have because I haven't used. So probably gonna use on the Sabbath weekend, when once in every irregularly, very regular, you know. It's been years and years and years. Like I said, I bought, and it still lasted me for years and years and years. I still have leftovers from that. So here we're gonna turn the heads left and right when we cross the street. we're gonna wait for the cars to pass, and we're gonna get it on the go, and that's how we're gonna get on that hydration, and that's how we're gonna get doing on that, man. For the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the electricians, the plumbers, and all those involved production, distribution of food. So Asperger's, of course, is this neurological mental divergent condition, not a mental illness. And Aspies, just to introduce and discuss it a little bit, because it's relative to what I am, integrally to what I am as a human being, as a citizen of the 63, as we're going to fuse for the Empire. The Imperial 63 fusion via my Trinity of theories, the DRT, Detro fusion theory, the Democratic fusion theory, and the CIT, that Trinity of theories, which I'm calling for the implementation via love. Asperger's is not a mental illness. It is a neurological mental divergent condition, which makes, of course, us predisposed to special interests, and those special interests preoccupy most of our daily routines and rituals. And that's where we are with that. So here we at the corner Green and Saint Antoine. That's how we're gonna get drilling, and it's always something which we gotta be satisfied about. And now we have this great city here with a lot of flora. Still, you can see a lot of trees, and yeah, sometimes we got some garbage here and there, but the public work is gonna pick it up and get that work. And again, Asperger's is not a mental illness. It is a neurological mental divergent condition, and that divergent mental condition, it is, of course, something which, of course, affects less than 1%, less than half of a percentile, 0.44%, 0.44%. Calculate that, 0.44% only of the population of the world has Asperger's. Dino, what is that? Quebec. Oh, boxing. I can box Trump. I've been challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match ever since 2018, 2018, I got those red gloves right in the backpack. Got them covered there, covered them protected in case it rains. And of course, I have been in and looking in to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match. Let's take an alley here and there. I was gonna go zigzag. Actually, where we're heading, I'm heading to see how many people went to the gym, and then we're gonna head back by the river to my place. So I'm here in Montreal, and that's what we're gonna get doing with the beautiful flowers there. Look at those beauties, and they're beautiful. Wow. That's how we're gonna get doing with that, and we're gonna get on that drill with the left and with the right, and we're gonna, of course, we could zigzag it through there, which we will. Here, a little bit of a back alley, Montreal. It's a metropolis. It was the most populated city in Canada for hundreds of years, and only in the 21st century, about 17 years ago, 15 years ago, 13 years ago, it was overtaken by Toronto, who became the most populated city. But Montreal, metropolis, still has 2.5 million people. Open your eyes. Let's see the sun. Open your eyes and see the sun. Open your eyes, dragon. Should be written in red. Open your eyes, dragons. General Rainbow Dragon, aka LOV, firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, truckers, those in the daycare changing some diapers. Always 24/7 as an independent artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, and of course, mystic. I was born in the United States 3 times post 70-76. Once as a man, twice as a woman. We're gonna get some hydration necessary as we're gonna concordium put in these steps. Well, if it's between adults, consent, and of course, sexual education in high school, sexual education. Now about 10 seconds to clear the pipes a little bit. So thank you, public workers, who build this with brains and muscle. That's why we are able to hydrate, myself included, on the fitness journey. Rainbow Dragon, gonna rainbow rock and roll it 24/7 for the firefighters, for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, and the plumbers, the electricians, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. Oh yeah. Whew, that was good. Ah. Oh yeah. Ah. That was what was needed. A beautiful park here with beautiful colors, and thank you public workers. Got the legions of ants there. Legions of ants. Where my legions? Legions app, legions. Our family, and that's why we're gonna go zigzag with that and gonna finish a few 5 minutes on Asperger's, and then we're gonna get into the freestyle rock and roll geopolitics for the Empire, the Kingdom, the Dancing Goddess, and the Dragon Kingdom. And I guess today usually we go by the mountain most of the times. Tomorrow we're gonna head on that mountain Friday, but we already been a few days, twice, 3 times. Once we've been by the river, and you know you got some talent here in the corners. And when I passed rallies like this, it made me think of a few years where I spent a few years with one foot in the streets, in the back alleys of Montreal, Hawk Island, this island right here, Montreal. And 1 foot in the streets, 1 foot in the libraries, and read and written tens of thousands of pages of philosophy, art, and mostly revolving around geopolitics. Because you know what it is with yours truly, geopolitics 24/7. The study, the analysis, and of course my strategy is best. And just because I discussed Asperger's, and I will discuss it now. See, one of the things of Asperger's, it's noticing certain numbers on the bus and then focusing on those numbers on the bus in a more intense manner. Of course, or concentrated manner, or be focused on certain details which other people are of course nothing. They don't really care about those little things, or those details, but this is a characteristic, not a symptom. Again, symptom is for a mental illness. Symptoms are for a mental illness or for a difficulty in psychological condition. That's beautiful blue. That is mental illness. It's bipolarity, I guess. Bipolar disorder. But when I say bipolar, of course, I discuss it in a geopolitical sense. I don't discuss it, of course, in a sense. I discuss it in a strategical sense. Strategical sense, Strategical sense. In a strategy sense, that's all we got. And that's how we're gonna get doing with that, and that's how we're gonna flow, And of course, the bipolar geopolitical strategy is, of course, for something which, of course, we gotta be mindful. That is for the North American Collective, for the 50, the 10, the 50, and the 3, and beautiful, beautiful things here, which gotta get doing on that, and that's how we gotta get doing, man. For the trails and for the metro bus drivers here, bus drivers here, that's how we're gonna get doing on that, and that's how we're gonna get doing on that. That's how we're gonna get rock and rolling, man. This is nice here. This one's really nice. I guess this is really nice here. It's really well made. The colors, eh? That one's really nice, That was really nice. Anyway, so what Asperger's is? A neurological mental divergent condition. What Asperger's is not is a mental illness. Right? So it's not a mental illness.
No. Bad.
Bad. Bye. Said bad and smile. I said bad, maybe. That's what it is. And maybe my cousin there said bad. I guess bad to be good. Made me sing a little bit of rock and roll song, and that's how we gotta be doing with that, and that's how we gotta get on that roll, man. I'm good. I'm just bad financially. I should have said bad financially. Well, it was on the phone though, so. But he looked at me and said bad and pointed the finger, pointed the finger, pointed the finger, pointed the finger. Oh, I'm not bad, but may I be avenged 11-fold. Nonetheless, I owe nobody nada, nada, zero. May I be avenged 11-fold. Curses bounce off of me like Elon Musk's satellites off the sun. May the curses bounce off of me like Elon Musk's satellites off the sun, man.
Yes, I remember.
And that's what it is, you know? Just that's what it is, and that's all we gotta do, man. And may all the curses bounce off of me like the Elon Musk satellites off the sun, man, you know? That's how we gotta rock and roll over there, and you know, we got our brothers and sisters, you know, who need that a little bit of loving, and that's how we gotta do, you know? It's always for the butchers, the bakers, and the nurses, and the firefighters, and the plumbers, the electricians, and all involved in the production, distribution of food, you know. So what Asperger's is, what Asperger's is not, it's not a mental illness. It is a neurological mental divergent condition, and that neurodivergent condition makes us Aspies predisposed to special interests, and those special interests, of course, where we're super involved, and we might have, again, characteristics, not symptoms, such as, you know, focusing on that number right there. I think it's 4401. 4401, 4401, see? So focusing on certain details which others say or do not mind at all, or consequently attribute no importance whatsoever, right? So those are basically characteristics of Asperger's. For example, I would focus on the word there, TCHO, the 4 letters, and gotta get some nice blue. And for those who don't know again what Asperger's is, because a lot of people don't know, you have to just Google it and read a book. I appreciate my anonymous friend gifted me one of the books which I have read intensively, and of course I've studied of course intensely. It's called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, you know. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. It's called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, just like I appreciate these flowers. I wish I could have money to buy my anonymous friend nice flowers here and bring some flower pots home, but I'm stressed and wish I could give my anonymous friend a house. And that book, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, what gorgeous. Isn't this just beautiful? I feel like just staying here for an hour, but I gotta do my workout, so I'm just gonna spend 44 seconds. And what Asperger's is, what Asperger's is not, is of course not a mental illness. Oh, there's more flowers there, so I guess the 44 plus seconds, my marching steps, 44 plus steps, almost 45 to get flowers. So Asperger's is not a mental illness. It is a neurological mental divergent condition, and that makes us weird, awkward, eccentric, bizarre in certain circumstances where we lack the proper way where we can communicate. So the communication skills, of course, we lack, and the communication skills sometimes are awkward, bizarre, in a manner that is not congruent to a common understanding of whatever the terms, whatever we're discussing. Sometimes, if it's not related to our special interests, we might have more difficulty, and we might, those special interests for Aspies, which are also known as, those special interests are also known as special interest, also known as obsessive interest. But it's not an obsession really in the sense. Obsessive is more for you, the majority of the population, the neurotypicals, which you of course constitute 99.56%, right? So the majority of the population, you are neurotypicals, you constitute 99.56%. So when we discuss Aspie special interest, don't use obsessive, because for me, spending hours and hours a day studying, analyzing, and doing geopolitical theoretical analysis, wow, look at that. Wow, I could just dance here for like hours. So nice. I love bright colors, you know. just love bright colors like that. It always gives me some joy. And anyways, that's how we rock and roll. And usually I can't afford it really, but whatever, it's okay. I'm on a tight budget, but I paid my rent, paid my electricity bill. Go Hydro-Quebec, go. The only thing I really need to pay really is my phone bill, which is gonna come by. It's gonna come soon. Phone bill should be by next Monday, you know. So next Monday would be next Monday. It is something which we have to be doing, you know. Next Monday, which we have to be doing with that, and that's how we're gonna get doing with that, and gonna get doing, you know. It's something which we have to be doing with that, and that's how we have to be doing, you know. It's something which we have to get doing like that, you know. They have all it is, you know. Anyways, so that's what it is. Anyways, so Asperger's is this neurodivergence which makes, of course, us predisposed to those special interests. Look at that. Red and white. Red and white goes well together. I find a combination. I'm just gonna wait for my auntie there. I'm gonna let her because she's a bit more senior citizen, and I'm gonna circumvent because with my backpack it would have been too much for both of us to fit there, you know, because otherwise we would have been at risk if I would have advanced. So I just actually in my head, you know, it's just information about distance and velocity that popped into my head. Is like mathematical things, you know, which aspects we can calculate velocity and speed and mathematical representation of area. So when I saw my fellow citizen coming through there, I realized that the space was too constrained for us to fit, of course, and the dynamics which of course have to be doing on the left and on the right for me to have circumcised. That's what I decided, that in that point event it was better for me to just turn and let her clear the path for her, so that she can, my fellow citizen can of course come and indulge and make us on the side, basically make protrude on the side of the work, you know, for to bet it on the go, you know. That's how we gonna go do it, you know. So that's how we gotta get doing with that. So that's what it is with that, you know, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get category on the go, you know. It's something which we have to be doing, you know. It's something which we have to be on the proposition side when we gotta get doing on that, and when we gotta get doing on the love side of things, and that's how we gotta get doing, you know. Something which we have to be thinking always in a manner where we build bridges. See, like this bridge. Some bridges must be built bigger, some bridges must be built thicker, some bridges must be built in a more different way. Some bridges have to be longer size, small size, medium size, or very large, right? I'm saying those four, but there's of course in between those fours. So that's the same, of course, for myself as a neurodivergent who has Asperger's, and other citizens who are neurotypicals, right? So it's always a give and pro, right? Because these bridges, which have to be built, are between me explaining my difference and how of course it's propositions on the go, and how it is the propositions to build those bridges continuously in an appellation where we build those bridges continuously, you know. And so we're gonna go do it with that, and they're gonna get it on the go, and anyways, that's all we got. I would really love to paint this. All of the benches, actually. This bench, that bench, that bench, all the benches. Some blue, some white, some color, some red, or whatever color would be. I would love to just paint them. I find them really gray, so I'm willing to volunteer. So, here is the dynamics. So the dynamic is, of course, that me as an individual who's part of the tiny small N.A.C.W.P community of 0.44%, 0.44%, 0.44%, that's what it is. So this 0.44% population is, of course, congruent to a small tiny fraction of the population, tiny small minority. And you can see, of course, the downtown core area there. The downtown core area. See how beautiful workers, they build a lot, and that's how we're gonna go do it with that, and that's how we're gonna go circumstantially to get it on the go, you know. So it's something which we're gonna do, you know. It's something which we have to be doing on the go, and we're gonna get it on the left and on the right, and on the left and on the right, you know. It's something which we have to be doing on the in the center, and all the way, of course, to integrate the plateau of integration, which we gotta be integrated on the left and on the right, and anyways, so this neurodivergence, of course, is quite a curse. It has been quite a curse, quite a struggle, you know. And for years and years and years, I've been told, and I've refused to accept it until finally, you know, I've accepted it. And that acceptance has come through a lot of pain and suffering, because N.A.C.P.'s, it's not a mental illness, and of course Asperger's is this neurological mental divergent condition, which of course makes us predisposed, of course, to obsessive interest and those special interests, also known as obsessive. But again, I don't utilize the word obsessive, because obsessive, of course, is something which, of course, is something which we gotta get doing on that go, you know. So that is just how we have to circumvent it on the, to build those bridges, in other words, you know. So building those bridges is something which we have, and something which we gotta be building on the guest and on the go, and that's what we gotta get doing on the left and on the right, and interjecting in the space-time continuum, as today is the July 3rd, 2025, that I've been diagnosed for many, many years and told, and several citizens and individuals have told me, and even online, diagnosed with Asperger's. And again, Asperger's is also known as HFA, and it's not a mental illness, it's just this neurodivergence. And this neurodivergence, of course, makes me predisposed to these special interests, and those special interests, of course, make us in concordium, and that concordiate is something which, of course, I always have to work on, because I'm part of this small tiny fraction of the population, of 0.44%, and that tiny percentage of the population is something which, of course, we have to be interjecting on the go, and that's how we gotta get doing on that, and that's how we gotta get categorized us, and we gotta get, remember. No, Captain. No, Captain. No, Captain. Battle formations.
J'espère que moi, ma fille, elle parlerait.
So that's the mountain, that's the mountain, that's the mountain. That's the mountain there, that's the mountain, see? That's the mountain, that's the mountain. That's the mountain where we were yesterday. This is a far off, so the mountain here is very far off, you know. It's not close, so the mountain there, mountain peak here, we're miles and kilometers away, you know. Miles and kilometers away from the mountain, and I hear those construction workers, look at those cranes, so I hear a lot of people working out, training, exercising. To finalize on Asperger's is not a mental illness, it is this neurodivergence. And this neurodivergence manifests itself in myself as an Aspie with the major characteristics, not symptoms of Asperger's, meaning I repeat sentences or phrases 2-3 times. Sometimes echolalia, I repeat verbatim per verbatim. That's Latin for word what somebody else might say, 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 you know. So what somebody else might say and propose, of course, which we have the propositions that go to an intellectual or academic levels where we of course can excel in our special interest, aka, again, I don't use the word, but they're also known as obsessive interest. And my holy trinity is special interest is geopolitics 24/7, the study, the analysis of geopolitical events, and of course I am an independent geopolitical theoretical understand theorist. Also rock and roll, parallel to rock and roll, sports and fitness. Dancing is my favorite sport, and of course dancing is my favorite sport, you know. Dancing is my favorite sport, and of course sports and fitness, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, and we gotta get doing on the appellation. So that is basically what Asperger's is. Basically that's what it is, you know, Asperger's. So this condition makes me predisposed to special interest, and that's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta go, you know. So it's something which we have to be doing, and we gotta get that, you know, I guess there. Turn your heads left and right. I'm somebody who doesn't like violence, of course. Turn your head left or right here when you cross. So I don't like violence, I'm just hyper-vigilant myself, but of course this hyper-vigilance comes from being attacked by surprise a few years ago. I was attacked by surprise and fell, hit my head on the concrete. Had a dislocated right arm, right shoulder. Had a dislocated right arm, right shoulder, and seeing people holding hands like that gives me some hope. There's hope for the free world, I guess, see? And there's hope, I guess, for the free world, eh? It's not all about the money, eh? Give some charity, mayonnaise, and gotta give a shout out to the fellow Aspie who, of course, gifted through PayPal via PayPal $25.44, $25.44, and of course that $25.44 was put to good use, of course, to get a little bit on the go with that, and to get that propensity, of course, to mobilize and of course be spent for only food, you know, for only food with that. That is what it is, and that's what was spent by on, and thank you Anonymous Aspie, thank you Anonymous Aspie, you know, to get it on the go, and that's what we gotta get doing, you know, to get it on the left, right, Z, man. So Asperger is not a mental illness, neurodivergence, check it out, Google it, and I recommend that book, which was gifted, well, actually rented, taken from me, but I had to, of course, give it back. It was a rental, loan, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, and that, of course, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome book has been put to good use, and I have to take, maybe I should take my raincoat off. I think maybe the raincoat now is no longer sufficient. I mean, it's sufficient because it's hot. So we're just gonna go on the side and we're gonna take it maybe here, there, yeah. Here, right here on the bench, and then protrude and continue with the marching workout. I guess the books I can put them here inside. That's all we gotta get doing, man. Put the books. Put the books. See other people holding hands, that's always something which I like, you know. I like to matchmake, but if you're white, black, white, man and woman, you can come, of course, make some good loving to me, with me, you know. But I prefer, and only friends with benefits from now on, please, you know. Only friends with benefits. Only friends with benefits. Put the raincoat for later. It was raining when it's been a few hours, you know. It's been a few hours that I'm on the march, so I guess this also I can take it off. Down left and right. Let's go, kick. Kick. Now it's more than 44 pounds for sure. All right. So what I'm curious to see is who made it and who's at the gym, the public gym there. And either we're gonna go home, come back by the river, or come back by the other way. Something which we're gonna be doing, you know. That's what we're gonna be doing on that. That's what we're gonna be rock and rolling, and we're gonna get it on the left, on the right, as we're gonna get moving on that, and they're gonna get on that drill, man, you know. For the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the electricians, the plumbers, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. I love that drill there. See how it goes on and goes on. You know, that's all we're gonna get drilling, you know. Anyways, it's something which, of course, we have to be mindful of here. My difference, and the fact that I have a tendency to stare, you know, at some objects for a long time. And so you got some people fishing here, and it's always good. Did you catch something, guy?
Yes.
Nice, nice. What did you catch?
One bass.
Bass? Nice. Bye, keep. See you later. So you got a little bit of bass there. People catching some fish. Some fish. If you want, you know. I guess you can still eat them, you know? You can still eat them, maybe. I would eat them, of course, but supposedly they're still safe to eat. So annually there's research done by Montreal. Supposedly they're still safe. They have iron and minerals, but they're still... I just laughing because I rock and roll in French, and just my fellow just made me think, of course, of the rock and roll songs which I compose daily in French and English, you know. So here it is. Now we're gonna discuss the total mobile defense theory, because that's what I'm good at. Defensive geopolitical strategies such as the bipolar Imperial's SSD strategy for total security solar defense by the fusion of Canada and the United States into the 63 Imperium via the implementation of the DRT, Death Fusion Theory, CIT Citizen Integration Theory, and the DFT. And this is Canada Trail here. And of course this makes me think of my theory, Operation Northern Scorpio, and the total mobile defense theory, which has to be integrated in a concordium, of course, which I've actually composed and comprised and still write about it every day. Of course, almost every day in my mind is revised the total mobile defense theory. And the total mobile defense theory is my theories when I got out of being depressed. And I got out of being, you know, before, the three main problems for aspirants is three main things: high depression rates. I was depressed and suicidal post 2017, and that's what it is with that, and that's what we got, you know. So that's how we got that train there. And of course the total mobile defense theory is something which has to be implemented and accorded in totality with all the manifestations of where we are now, strictly geopolitically speaking. And see, that's the mountain. So you can see part of the mountain there, Mount Royal. Mount Royal is right there, see, and this is more construction workers building on that rock and roll with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on that rock and roll, you know. So the total mobile defense theory, I don't usually discuss it at all. I just introduce it in a more, of course, simple manner, in a non-detailed manner, because I cannot, because it's strategic for the binational Canada United States security. Yeah. Yeah, man. Hey, that's what it is, you know. Here we got that downtown, and that's how we gotta get on that drill, you know. We gotta meditate on everything that's happening now across the 63, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, truckers now transporting that bread, that cheese. This is a big metropolis city here, so it's also gotta think about the small towns, small villages, and of course all the other things which we got, and gotta get doing on that. Parks Canada, doing a little bit of that cleaning, which has to be done on that cleaning and that, and that's all we got. That's how we gotta get doing with that, and we gotta get doing on that left and right, and for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, and the firefighters, you know, the plumbers, the electricians, and that's how we gotta get doing on the left, right, Z, and we gotta get on that equilibrium, you know, because I predicted what's happening now. So meaning, of course, what I meant to say is true and declarative. I make this statement because I always do in my videos. I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. So due to Asperger's, I have a special interest known as, my field is geopolitics, and I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist. Being that I'm an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, that's of course also a strategist. So my strategies are for the North American Collective, and that's how we gotta get doing. The North American Collective is of course the fusion of Canada and the United States in a tripartite imperial strategy. My bipolar imperial strategy is not to be confused with bipolarity, but of course it's to be admitted into a sentence on the go. So that's what it is for that XYZ, and we gotta get it on the go. And damn. That's what it is. And that's how we gotta get drilling with that. Somebody's celebrating there, I guess. I'm celebrating every day, surviving COVID, you know. Surviving COVID, surviving being depressed, and surviving being suicidal. So what made me come out of being depressed and being suicidal is, of course, my coming out of being depressed and being suicidal, and that's what it is, and that's how we got. And for the left and for the right, and for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, and the doctors, and the firefighters, and the plumbers, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those, of course, now making some cheeseburgers and some hamburgers and some potato salad, and all those, of course, now involved in all that trucking, eh? Imagine all the trucking which is happening across the North American Collective. We gotta meditate upon that, and that's something which we have to be meditating, you know. And that's Asperger's again. It's not, you cannot medicate Asperger's, you know. It's not an illness. It's not an illness which you can medicate, you know. It's not an illness which you can medicate. It's not an illness which you can medicate, but it's something which, of course, is part of the North American Collective. They're doing some love there, celebrating. I always love joyous and celebratory moods, and people who are doing on that basketball and handball, that's how we gotta get doing on that. And they be doing some of that loving, you know, for the firefighters, the butchers, the breakers, the nurses, the doctors, the who gotta get it on the go now for the love. And I always like to see people working out here. Got a little bit of that left and that volleyball. I love sports. Dancing is my favorite sport, but when I see people physically active, I always get a double joy whiff of that joy, because it's a pleasure for me to see people working out and training and exercising. And that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get doing on the love, man. To get it on the left and on the right, and all those for butchers, the bakers, the train conductors, you know. So what got me out of depression? I'm being suicidal, you know. It is crossing Canada coast to coast, ocean to ocean. In 2017, I crossed Canada coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Yep. So 2017 in August, I went in BC, British Columbia. In 2017 in August, so it's gonna be 8 years soon this year, and I have the tickets. I'm auctioning them for $1 million. And then in September, I went to Nova Scotia, Halifax, Nova Scotia, 2017. I got the tickets for both, and that's how we gotta get doing. So I got the tickets for both. So that event made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, and that's what it is with that, you know, with my fellow Canadians, Quebecers, Canadians who are my family, North Americans, because I was born in the United States three times, and is the 10 provinces, 50 states, plus 3 territories. For the 63, my bipolar, not to be confused again with the mental condition, with the mental illness, but bipolar is in the geopolitical strategy via for total 21st century imperial SSD dominion, meaning the creation of the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions via my trinity arteries, such as the DRT, to fuse Canada, United States in the 63 perpetual imperial union of the 21st century. We're going to have the democratic republican constitution, and as we're going to fuse, we're going to integrate in mass finance reconstruction, mass finance fitness, mass finance Hydro-Quebec work here, and mass finance healthcare in the public-private partnership for the empire, the bipolar strategy. Again, not to be confused with bipolarity as in the disorder, but I love this red and white together. Red and white together. So the bipolarity, that's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta rock and roll, you know. Gotta get it for the left, for the right, and for the butchers, for the bakers, for the nurses, for the doctors, and anyways, that's what it is. So this Imperial strategy, I gotta salute. I like this, how it's built there. I would just love some color, but I just find it, there's something beautiful about it with the sun, how it glazes over. So this is new. I think it's written in, oh, but it looks really good. Really good. So that is something which we have to be admiring, construction workers, because I will to build the 444, the North American Imperial Coliseum. What does that say? Upper. Sometimes I don't fully understand the writing, but I guess maybe something we're not meant to be supposed or understand. Just to admire, I guess, man. Anyways, so that's geopolitics for you, and of course I do take a lot of pride in my geopolitical work. I have predicted what's happening now back in 2019, so you always have to keep in mind by that work back in October, November, and of course I have proof of what I say. As I salute the train conductors going across the 63. Across the 63. Across the 63, you know. Across the 63, man. So those are lotus, see? We have lotus around about the island here, you know. Lotus flowers are gonna start being arising soon, and that's what we got, you know. We're gonna get those lotus right popping in. But so you always have to keep in mind that I predicted what's happening now. So when you start to discuss, and if you want just to commission, I work on a specific geopolitical topic. Know that I specialize in the 20th century, and of course in the 21st century. In the 21st century on a day-to-day basis. In 2019, I predicted what's happening now. I predicted what's happening now. Back in 2019. Back in 2019, man. Back in 2019, man. Back in 2019, I predicted what's happening now. Back in 2019, you know. That's what I predicted with that, and that's what I predicted with that, you know. We gotta get it on the go. And so we gotta get it on the go, man. So we gotta get drilling with that, man. So it's something which we gotta be on the go, you know, 24/7. And keep in mind that my geopolitical theorizing and analysis is concordium for North American Collective, what I call the North American Civilizational Complex. And as much as I know, of course, the ideologies of Soviet Russia, the Chinese Communist Party, but current 21st century philosophy of Xi Jinping's governance of China. So if you do want to discuss China, you have to have certain awareness of governance of China. The governance of China, the governance of China. The governance of China. The governance of China, you know. The governance of China, you know. The governance of China. That manual volume has started to be written since 2012, you know. Since 2012. And if you want to have a certain discussion, you have to know and have some knowledge about the governance of China. That's what it is, that's what it is, that's what it is with that. And that's how we gotta get doing here at this full gymnasium. And that's how we gotta get doing, man. On that full gymnasium, that rock and roll. Always. For the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, plumbers, electricians. See, this is a public gym, and I wish I could build here, construct a little bit of that water fountain, you know. That water fountain with that, and that's some athletics right there, you know. That's what I gotta be doing with that. So I've gotta be that rock and roll, keep on pulling up and down. That's where we gotta get drilled, man. Good for you, man. That's brothers and sisters there doing some of that public hygiene. If I go in there, I'm gonna be 50-50. That androgynous rainbow dragon. Good for you. I love seeing that. To see people working out, training, exercising, and that's what I'm doing on the steps, and that's what I've been doing since 2017, you know, when I crossed Canada coast to coast. And that event really got me out of being depressed and suicidal, and that really completely changed my whole life, you know. Before that I was depressed, I was suicidal, and that's really what turned my whole life, you know. And I crossed Canada coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and that event made me establish a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, and I've been on the fitness journey ever since, just like now, you know. I guess we can do some push-ups, and should do some push-ups with a backpack. Yeah, the problem is I need to pee, so and I have to hit that corner there. I really need to pee just out of nowhere, and if not, I'm gonna pee all over me. So that's gonna be the corner. Sorry, Publik, I hope nobody passes, and I'm gonna do it fast. Nobody will see because I'm gonna be in the corner there with the bushes and the cement. You're not supposed to publicly urinate, but the closest, it's either that way, which is at least 15 minutes, and that way, which is at least 20 minutes. So I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna last even 4 minutes maximum. I can hold it. But anyways, crossing Canada coast to coast was what got me out of being depressed and suicidal, and that's how I got a rock and roll. Let's see, for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, the bakers, and you know, all those involved in the production, distribution of food. Production, distribution of food, and I can't do here because of course my fellow citizens, gotta wait for my fellow citizens to pass, but I really have to go. I can't hold it. I am gonna burst. I'm gonna burst. This is gonna be the corner. I really have to. I really can't. Hold on, 44 seconds. Oh yeah, I couldn't hold it. I just made sure that there was nobody coming, nobody there, and whew, that was the way to go there, and that's what it is, and that's what I got it, and that's what of course we're gonna get it to do. And you know, sometimes you just gotta go. So I decided that today I'm not gonna go to the mountain because I went yesterday and we went the day before, so we went twice, and you know, we're gonna go by the river, towards the sun. I guess we could go towards the sun if we go towards the mountain. Should we go to the mountain? Let's go by the river. By the river. Tomorrow we're gonna go to the mountain because we went, of course, twice already. So I guess tomorrow is gonna be the third one, and we went Monday. We went yesterday, Wednesday, Tuesday. We went by the another side when I saw those fireflies like I never seen before. You can check it on my videos. I never saw fireflies clustered like that, and I guess I don't need a little bit of a sunscreen, but doesn't mind a little bit of that sunscreen with it. And we gotta get it on the left side of things, and I feel like stopping a bit there, but you know what? Now we're just gonna clock it in and maybe do some push-ups on the way, I guess. Stop to do some push-ups. Flex a bit. I guess I can do some push-ups right there, and then we can continue with the march. Always good to do some push-ups, train the upper body, lower body, and I got the backpack on, so it's always something after these 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. After these 4 wheels, which you can work with, we're gonna set up and do some push-ups here in the sun, I guess, right by this rock and roll. Hygiene. Get it on the go, man. Let's go, man. 13 is always good. I guess we can do more on the way. always we can do more on the way. So towards the sun by the water, gonna see a little bit of that working out and maybe training and exercising here. It's always good, man. Get a lot of exercise, jumping up and down. It's something which is always good and which we always gotta get it on the go. And here we turn our heads left and right there. Turn it up and down, and that's how we're gonna get drilling, man. I always admire those who work out, train, exercise, and we gotta get it on the go, man, for them to get fit. I guess I'm gonna have to take 2 weeks. Maybe in 11 days I can take my shirt off and go at the gym. 11 days. I need to lose about between 7 and 11 pounds. Besides that, I'm pretty fit, but it's been 7 years plus, eh? Before that, I was about 290, depressed, suicidal, depressed and suicidal, you know. Depressed, suicidal, cross Canada, coast to coast, and about 3.5 years ago, you know, I've accepted my Asperger's. That's what it is with that, and that's how we're gonna get drilling wood, and that's how we gotta get on that rock and roll, man, like that. See a little bit of that, man. See a little bit of that. That's why I said with that. So we gotta get drilling, you know. That's what it is, man. Anyways, we're gonna get drilling with that, and sometimes always gotta be grateful, you know. Grateful, thankful, rent's paid, electricity bill's paid, and got food and coffee, and that's why we gotta rock and roll it for the days where we rock and roll. And every day, you know, I gotta say, for the apparatus that's they pray. And you know we gotta do. Just that I see you, 5 roses, what you do. And there's some lotus that just scream it for the train conductors. And the butchers and the bakers and the nurses and the firefighters. We gotta get it on you do, we gotta get it on you see. We gotta get it for you see, we gotta get it for you be. Bees on the knees and trees in the fleas. You know, you got some skyscraper honeybees. Hey, yeah, man. That's what we gotta get doing on that, and gotta get on that rock and roll with it, you know. It's always exciting to go see. There. At the Publik gym. Salute. Keep it up, get that work. I've been in and we're gonna do a call, you know, for the mass finance, you know. The mass finance of the fitness across the collective, fitness and tourism. So now I'm gonna get in my Trinity theories. Super important, and I start discussing my Trinity theories. Is, you know, it's super important, especially the DRT. But once again, just to finalize and repeat, because it's super important, and I repeat, I predicted what's happening now. Back in November 2019. So in November 2019, I made an in-depth analysis. That's usually when I do my annual. I do it on a daily basis, geopolitical theorizing and analysis and strategy. But of course, back in 2019, October, November is usually when I do the annual one. So I have predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration, meaning a World War III scenario, based on several layers of analysis. And those several layers of analysis are, of course, proponent to the resolutions and the solutions of which we find ourselves involved today. That the geopolitical conflicts which are happening now are due to those conclusions which I've, of course, concluded. And one of the major problematic one was that due to unresolved conflicts from the 20th century, specifically the 20th century Cold War era, which of course lasted between 1947 and 1991. So March 1947 to 1991. So that's a long period of time. End of December 1991, end of December 1991, end of December 1991, end of December 1991. So end of December 1991. So that's almost 45 years. Almost 45 years. It's a totality of 44 years and 9 months. 44 years and 9 months. So that was the Cold War period. The Cold War period, of course, had several layers of conflicts, bigger, smaller, medium, and long-term conflicts. I'm not going to go into an in-depth discussion because my analysis on the Cold War is also in-depth, but it also can parallel other geopolitical theoretical analysts and theorists, or strategists, that is, of course, because my strategy, keep in mind, is for the North American Collective, you know? North American Collective. North American Collective. That's it, that's all, and that's how we're gonna do it, and that's how we gotta get drilling with that, you know. That's how we gotta get loving, and you gotta go find them, you know. That's how we gotta go, you know. And that's it, that's all. And so that's it, that's all, meaning that prognostication, that salutation, and that conclusion has been happening in the past years. Of course, not in a detailed manner as I predicted it, and I haven't predicted it exactly that Russia is going to invade Ukraine on this in February 2022, for example, end of February 2022, or specific dates and details. I predicted a general overall World War III scenario in which the majority of the populations which had not fully resolved their conflicts from the 20th century. So this conflagration from the 20th century was, of course, has been happening ever since COVID, you know, so that's how we gotta get doing with that. That's how we gotta get that rock and roll, you know. And that's how we gotta beat the dimension of the knowledge and the internal matters of the propositions, of course, is that we are, of course, on the cosmopolitan manner, in a cosmopolitan world, in a multipolar world now. My bipolar strategies, of course, the bipolar strategies, of course, for something which we gotta be doing with that. And we gotta do it on the go, and we gotta do it on the left, and we gotta do it on the left and right, and we gotta get doing on the do. So something which we gotta be doing. We're gonna get it on the conclusion, and that's how we gotta get doing on the left, you know, and on the right. Gotcha. Bye. And that's what it is. So geopolitics is something which we have to integrate in our complexities where we are today. Geopolitical events and situations are happening as we speak. You repeat it. Please. That's what it is with that, man. You don't like no, right? And that's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get that rock and rolling, you know? Something which we got under the confluence of the matters. And the point is that I predicted it and I have the proof, I have the video online. So in 2019, I predicted and I created a World War III scenario. World War III scenario, World War III scenario. That's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get doing, you know. No. Connie. Shoot. Awesome. Yo. I go cold blooded. I go. Yeah, so I predicted what's happening now. I just had a cadence. A more hardcore cadence in my mind. Yes, buddy, I know. We gotta have some justice, you know. We gotta have some justice, but nonetheless, I predicted what's happening now, you know. Back in 2019, October, November 2019, and I predicted what's happening now, and still, of course, still ongoing. right. Turn your heads left and right, left and right. Watch the car, gotta slow down before you cross the street prudently, safely. So we're gonna get drilling. Left, right, left, right. Usually gonna wait a few seconds, or if not, go below. You can go below there, but do advise maybe go below, but you have an added risk. Oh, thank you. This is nice. Thanks. Not just for me, of course, but for somebody else. That's how we gotta get drilling on that, and that's how we gotta get doing on the drill, you know. It's something which we gotta be on the left and on the right and in the middle, and that's what we gotta get doing, you know. For the left, for the right, for the butchers, for the bakers, for the truckers, for the plumbers, for the electricians. That's the thing, eh? And that's just the propositions, you know, just the theories behind my prediction. Nonetheless, suffice it to say that there have been happening such in a parallel manner as I have predicted them. But of course, keep in mind that the prediction was semi-intellectual, semi-academic, semi-philosophical, semi-intellectual, semi-sophisticated. But just to sum it up is that the fact, of course, remains that there was unresolved conflicts from the 20th century. So that was a major premise of my analysis. And you can make it a common denominator of my geopolitical analysis. And of course, today I got to be checking when I get back home to see the big, beautiful bill. I was hoping it's going to be to rebuild the North American ghettos, aka the North American inner urban cities. The North American inner urban cities. I was hoping. That's what it is with that, and that's what we're gonna get doing with the drill, you know. So it's something which we have to be doing, you know. We gotta get doing on that, and we gotta get doing on the meditation, and that's something which we have to be doing, you know. So it's something which we have to be doing with that, and have to be on the go, you know. Yeah, playing a little bit of that sports. I love seeing sports like that. It's kind of fun, but dancing is my favorite sport. But I always like to see physical activities which are varied, eh? Variation sometimes is good. Just gonna hydrate a bit here. Gonna wait a few seconds. Oh, it's for the dogs. For the dogs, somebody put it. See, for the dogs, somebody put there, so just gonna put some water in it. It's gonna be filled with that. Let's go. Hydrate. See, there it is for the water. That's what it is with that. Go hydrate. See, there it is for the doggies below. See, that's cute, I guess. That's what it is, man. That's doing with that, and that's how we gotta get drilling on the go, you know, to get it on the XYZ for the left and for the right, and for those involved in the production, distribution of food, you know, that is something which we have to be drilling on, you know. is something which we have to be admissive, and we have to be admissive on that, you know. So it's something which we gotta be conclusive. So this conclusion, of course, is something which we have to be doing, and something which we have to be fully understanding of the geopolitical reality. So it's real geopolitics. So the point is that this following statement which I'm about to make is, will be, has been a constant. Think about it just like in the mathematical pi, the symbol pi, the symbol pi, the symbol. The pi is symbol, mathematical symbol pi, which is the relation between the circumference and the diameter of a circle. So this diameter circumference of a circle is of course the confluence, of this following statement. This following statement. This following statement. This following statement. This following statement, this following statement, this following statement, you know. So this following statement is of course a constant. Just like the pi number always signifies 3.1416, 3.1416. It's always, it doesn't change. It's not a flexible number, it's not a variable, it is a constant. So this constant stays the same, right? Mathematical constant. So this geopolitical reality is always a constant for us, for Quebec, Canada, for Canada, Quebec. So there's no way out of this following statement. This following statement has to be a yes. You know, it has to be a yes, you know. It has to be a yes. What I'm gonna say now has to be a yes. Nasa lam na. Asip. C'est moi la pièce. Je donne un peu de langue. C'est un essentiel, un peu de langue. Un peu de langue. Un essentiel. So that's what it is. That's what it is. And it's the propositions, of course, to get it done. So what we need to fully comprehend, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, and we gotta get doing on the drills, you know. So basically, this is of major importance, you know. This is of major importance. Consequently, the point in fact is that in today's geopolitical environment, this following statement, it is something which we have to be doing. Renewal results. Oopsie. Oopsie. that's what it is, and that's how we gotta get drilling, you know. So basically, the point in time now today is that there is the situation at hand today, and this has to be a yes. This is not something which, of course, can change, you know. This is not something which can change. This has not changed, this will not change in the 21st century. So this is something which doesn't change. It's a constant. Let's take a look at that. So the constant just like the mathematical pi number, is of course, just like the pi number is, of course, the pi number represents the mathematical diameter and circumference number related to the circle. Related to the circle, of course. Related to the circle. That's what it is, and that's what it is with that. And that's how we gotta get drilling, you know. So basically, yeah. So that's just how it is with that. And that's how we're gonna go do it, and that's how we're gonna get drilling on that, and that's how we gotta get on that go, you know, to give it for the left and for the right and for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors. So the pi symbol represents this constant mathematical representation of the circle and the diameter. So I could do some of those sometimes. Maybe with my anonymous friends sometimes, and wearing some of those red this summer. It's 3rd of July. Gonna have to pay my phone bill soon with that, and that's how we're gonna have to pay that phone bill, you know. Something which we have to be consecrated and dedicated on that, and that's how we're gonna get doing, you know. So that's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get drilling. So that's the pi symbol, which represents the mathematical proportion which relates to the aforementioned a priori, the number, the pi. So mathematically it is, I'm going to make the statement in geopolitics, it is of course another constant which of course can apply throughout, of course, the collective, which has got to get doing with that, and we got to get doing on the go, and that's how you got to get doing with that. That's how you got to get doing on the left and on the right, and we got to get it on the go, you know. Anyway. Yeah. Towards the sun we go. Towards the sun we go. The king, my pope. So the constant geopolitical reality is that it is that us our number one most important principle is to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial relations with the United States, right? With the United States. Look at that downtown, isn't that nice? So that is just a mathematical constant. That is a principle that doesn't change. That doesn't really change at all. So that mathematical constant is a constant. Turn your heads left and right. So that is a constant. So that doesn't change, right? That doesn't change. And this is reciprocal. So this is also applicable for the United States. Again, the following statement has to be answered as yes, right? As yes, yes, yes. So you cannot say no or maybe to this following geopolitical statement. So now I just forget anything else, that I'm pansexual, androgynous, blah, 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 blah. I suffer struggle, was attacked by surprise, I don't like violence, and I am hyper vigilant, but I am defensive, and hyper vigilant, I guess, because of my own scars and trauma. But forget all that for now. Just geopolitically, this following statement has to be a yes. So our primary important when it comes to foreign affairs, our most important primary number one interest is to have the best, most cordial economic, financial, commercial, diplomatic, social, cultural, financial, and military defensive relations with the United States. Reciprocally for the United States is the same. For the United States. So this is reciprocal. A reciprocal statement, so that doesn't change. It's just the constant. So that statement doesn't change at all, right? It doesn't change. That statement doesn't change. It has been so in the 20th century, and it will be so in the 21st century. So that is just the mathematical constant. So it has been, is, and will be so in the coming, it's the day it is so, and it will be in the 21st century, in the coming days, weeks, months, years and years and years in the 21st century. See that? You can see part of where we were yesterday, but that's miles and kilometers away. So again, this is the same for the United States. I can cross now, but just gotta be careful still, although it's my way to turn to cross. So that is our number one interest, primary economic, financial, commercial interest when it comes to foreign affairs. I'm not discussing internal domestic affairs. So I'm not discussing domestic affairs, but external affairs. So that is our main interest. Reciprocally, the United States is the same for the United States. As I admire these beautiful flowers here. Good job, public workers. I love these, kind of nice. Just don't pollute. No pollution. Nobody left. Sometimes I see people leave cans or trash there. Please put it in the trash. Don't. This is public, you know. This is for us. For me, for you, for us. So don't leave like trash and garbage in here. Just put it where it belongs, in the public trash, you know. I'm sure you can find one very close. Let's see. Sometimes I see blurred when it's far away. I was prescribed some glasses. But anyway, so back to geopolitics. So this is a constant, just like the pi mathematical representation, which represents the relation between the circle and the diameter. It's always 3.1416, right? 3.1416. So that doesn't change. So at the same time, this geopolitical statement that our number one interest, economic, financial, political interest, is to have the best relations with the United States. Economically, financially, commercially, in all places. When it comes to foreign, I'm not speaking domestic affairs. The domestic affairs with that. And I'm not speaking domestic affairs with that. Gotta go, and that's how it is, and that's how we gotta get doing on that. And we gotta get doing on the circumference of things when we are. You gotta get it on the go, you know, to get it on the bananas and the oranges and whatever else we have in import and export, you know, from the... Well, bananas are not actually US. The last ones I got from Guatemala. So they're not actually US. But the oranges and other things we have from the US. So correction, because bananas are not from the US. That's what I wanted to spot. See, I was prescribed some glasses, but I'm too broke to get them now. So that is the number one geopolitical. When it comes to external domestic affairs, right? External domestic affairs. That is our number one geopolitical interest, foreign interest. I'm not discussing other things now. Well, leave some seconds. Usually I count about 20 seconds. So again, the statement is that I'm counting 20 seconds for the pipes to clear, you know. So our number one priority when it comes to foreign affairs, for us Quebecers, Canadians, Quebecers, and of course my brothers and sisters in the 50 states, is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. So that doesn't change. That's always a mathematical constant. That's always a constant, right? So that doesn't change. That's always a constant, right? A mathematical constant. That's always a mathematical constant. So that doesn't change. It's not a variable. So that statement has applied in the 20th century, is applicable now, 3rd of July, and will be applied in the coming days, weeks, months, and years, and decades in the 21st century. But this is reciprocal. This is not just for Quebec, Canada. My brothers and sisters, the king is absent, it's time for the republic. But this is, of course, also applicable for the United States, of which where I was born 3 times, post 76, served twice in the United States Armed Forces, two different wars, 156 years apart, but that's what I served in it, and I like this. This is really nice. Wow, hey, this is really nice. Whoever did this, wow. This is really nice. Wow, look at that. More like that I want to see. That's really talented, you know. And there's a nice area. You have many nice area of Montreal, but you can come have a coffee, have a soup, and have a taco, have some food, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get doing on that drill, you know. So something we want, you know, to get on that lovely side of things. And anyways, I'm just laughing because I know I'm different, you know, and I can be extremely weird and awkward and super focused, super concentrated. And even now in my head, you know, I was analyzing the prices. I was imagining, of course, the credit cards being spent, and of course the credit cards are maxed out for the most part, and many citizens are, of course, stressed financially. And here I'm gonna cross the street because it's my way to turn and my time to turn. But here you got a nice street if you can go there. Got a nice places here on Notre Dame, and it's a nice area, you know. I'm just heading back to my headquarters because I'm starting to get a bit hungry, but nonetheless, you know, it's my hometown in this life and in another life. And you know, I remember just moving. I moved 10 years ago, supposedly. I thought it was 9, but supposedly it's been 10 years. And of course 10 years, and I remember just, you know, I don't remember much of my life prior to 2014. I remember being attacked by surprise, living in a moldy place, still on the island of Montreal, in Citoyen, in an underground little village, not village, but in an underground prison type of cell, type of little small prison cell. And I moved. I was attacked by surprise. I moved. I was depressed and suicidal for like 3.5 years, and then I crossed Canada coast to coast. That got me out of being depressed and being suicidal. And I started working out, training, exercising. I lost between 80 pounds and 93 pounds, 80 pounds and 93 pounds. And of course, here I am now, still learning, still got to connect with my parallel self, where I guess I'm a super scientist. I know supercomputers, computers, ICBM rockets, satellites, microchips, telecommunications, 3G, 4G, 5G, and smartphones and coding. I have Asperger's in that parallel life, parallel universe also, but in this one is geopolitics. So let's finish up on the geopolitics and switch to that French, because we're in la belle province. So our main interest, geopolitical interest, for us is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other as Quebecers, Canadians. So this doesn't change. This is not, there's no, you cannot say no or maybe. That is just a statement which is applicable 24/7. So that statement is constant, That statement is constant. So the constancy of that statement is, of course, that fact. That is just a fact, The fact. So that is the fact. You cannot say no to that statement. That's what you have to say yes. So again, I'm going to repeat the statement. And this is just geopolitics or foreign affairs. Included in foreign affairs and internal affairs, domestic affairs is all part of the geopolitics, geopolitical complex. So of course, our main geopolitical interest is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other, right? So there's no way out of this. There's no way out of this. There's no way out of this. So that is just our main geopolitical interest. Or, of course, not just geopolitical interest, but domestic interest for us, Quebecers, Canadians, is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. So there's no way out of that. And you cannot say maybe and you cannot say no, of course. It is always going to be for years and years and years and decades, it's going to be the same. Is this made in USA? Yeah, that's made in USA. Interesting enough. It's made in USA. See? Made in USA. Made in USA. It's interesting, eh? So all of these are made in USA. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I guess the other ones as well. So I wonder what was the deal arrangement made. So just like I said, geopolitical, you can see that it's called advantage. And by providence, see, my bipolar strategy will be to our paradoxical 21st century geopolitical dominance an advantage, implementing my geopolitical strategy, which I'm going to be saying once I can pass now the street. So as you saw, it said there advantage, and this one is also advantage. Let's see. So I wonder how many, because I see a lot of things are made in the USA. So see, this is made in the US. See, it says made in the USA. But I don't know how many they ordered, but if that's made in the USA, those are made in the USA, those in the corner, so all of these are made in the USA. So that's steel, aluminum, right? Aluminum and steel. So I don't know how the batch and how they were working to do them. But of course, the paradox is that geopolitically, of course, in a bipolar manner is, of course, something which we gotta be taking under consideration on the go and on the left and on the right. And that's how we're gonna get drilling on that. And that's how we're gonna get on that consequence, So yours truly, that is quite extraordinary. I was just discussing how our interest is to have the best, most cordial relations with my brothers and sisters in the USA. That one, it says 2024 ductile. It says India on it. Is that what it says? Is that a no? Interesting. And these ones, This must be Canadians, Canada. Anyway, so point is that us as Quebecers, Canadians, Quebecers, our main interest is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. That's just how it is. That's just how it is. That's just how it is with that. That's just how it is. So it's to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. There's no way out of that. There's no way out of that. There's no way out of it. So you cannot say no or maybe, right? Point is, this is a constant. It's like the pi symbol. Our main interest when it comes, of course, to the world of course, to the world of geopolitics, to the world of foreign relations. Anything to do with exterior foreign affairs. I kind of like how these are, a little bit of color on them, but there's something I like about them. Maybe it's that bridge in between there, because I always got to build bridges with my Asperger's, my being an Aspie, and you, the 99.56%. We always have to build bridges of understanding, and we got to work together, because you know the major three problems for Aspies is lack of friends, and we don't have a lot of friends, Aspies, and from now on, friends with benefits only, pledge your allegiance to our family, and of course, consequently, I can pass. I got 4 seconds. The major problem for Aspies is the three things: lack of friends, high unemployment, way too high, it's unacceptable, 11 times higher than neurotypicals. 11 times, so it's 80%, estimated at around 80, 4/5, that's 0.8. That's unacceptable, 11 times higher than the neurotypicals, which you, the 99% constitute. 11 times higher. Also, high depression and suicidal rate, and I was there for 3.5 years until summer 2017, and I think that's written Imperial. So of course that makes me think of my bipolar North American Collective Imperial strategy for the 21st century geopolitical dominion via the implementation of my DRT, the debt refusion theory, which I'm now gonna have to discuss before I switch to French now that I saw that. So now, this DRT theory is part of course, the geopolitical strategy, so forget everything for now, focus on the strategy that I have been and will continue to develop as a philosopher and artist, athlete, and geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist. So of course, the geopolitical strategy is of course consequently to implement the geopolitical strategies to implement the aforementioned debt refusion theory. Debt refusion theory. Debt refusion theory. Kind of like that little. What is that? I'm not a car connoisseur, but some Aspies whose special interest might be cars. An Aspie might know so many things about cars. Might just look at a car, know the internal dynamics of the car, the details about the consumption rates, the speed it reaches, the XYZ, the most problems it encounters mathematically. Me, it's geopolitics. That's my special interest. That's what I am. An independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist. And now the strategy, and of course I cannot overly discuss the total mobile defense theory when we add the fifth letter to that, TMDT, total, T for total, M for mobile, D for defense, TMDT, total mobile defense theory, TMDT, the total mobile defense theory. When we add an S to it, that means that the theory is put into practice. It becomes implemented, right? Because it's matters of binational security. I cannot overly go in details. They have to be discussed with David McGuinty, new Minister of National Defense, and Public Security Ministers, and Chiefs of Police, and RCMP, and of course FBI, CIA, Pam Bondi, and my cousin Pig Hexet. Big Hexet. Thank you to the public workers. We're gonna clean this mess. Please. Just a little bit of more cleaning, please. So the geopolitical strategy is of course the implementation thereof of something which we have to be doing. I just had a little flash of a drill. I said, dragons, you're gonna have to do some push-ups in that mess and make sure, or to clean it up, or the dragon army just gonna serve for SSD, security, service and defense, integrated with all existing institutions and organizations. So consequently, the total mobile defense theory, I cannot discuss it overly too much. So now I'm just gonna focus on the debt refusion theory. On the debt refusion theory. On the debt refusion theory. So the DRT debt refusion theory has to be a standard because it's part of the bipolar geopolitical strategy for the North American Dominion. The fusion of Canada thereof, Canada and United States to fuse in a strong public-private partnership, and of course to integrate and implement it across the aforementioned formulations via the DRT. So what is the DRT? The DRT debt refusion theory. We're gonna take all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt. So this is of course part of the bipolar strategy. Bipolar strategy, not to be confused again with bipolarity as in the psychological sense, but bipolar as in Canada, United States, to create this bipolar, basically New World Order, but we're gonna fuse in the imperial, we're gonna have the imperial constitution for the Democratic Republic of the Empire of the 63 as we're gonna fuse Canada, United States, the 10, the 50, and the 3 together. So the DRT is part of this strategy, the geopolitical strategy. We have no choice. We have to implement this regardless because both Canada and the United States were in a massive economic, financial, commercial problems due to the fact that we have so much. Got a lot of cleaning to do, brothers and sisters. A lot of cleaning. Due to the fact that we have so much. Due to the fact that we have so much debt. Myself, I only have $10,000 in debt. $10,000 in debt. $10,000 in debt. $10,000 in debt. And that's what it's gonna be. $10,000 in debt. $10,000 in debt to the RBC. So that is my debt. So the DRT theory explained. 5 letters. 1111. Hey, somebody wrote that. 1111. So this is the DRT theory. The debt refusion theory for the creation of the UE, the universal exchange unit, the universal exchange unit. The DRT theory, debt refusion theory for the creation, of course, of the UE is something which we're gonna have to be implementing together. Again, we have no choice. We have no choice but to do it because we're on the verge of a public and private financial collapse. And that is beautiful there. Thank you, public workers. I like that fountain. It's quite nice. Quite nice. I don't know, there's something about it I just like. Something about it I like. So the DRT theory, we have no choice but to implement it. And the choice is not objectionable, it's just not emotional or nothing to do with irrationality, although I recognize that there's emotionally irrational feelings and complementary values and attributions which can consequently be of importance when I discuss it. Beautiful sky. I gotta give a little bit of salutations to the public workers. Public workers. Thank you. The public workers changing up those aqueducts, those sewers. We got a lot of work, and by the DRT theory, we're gonna be able to mass rebuild the whole North American civilization structure. But before, I gotta give a salutation to all the public workers of the past. I'm present of the past. And look at this beauties. Lots of work, Arbeit, and we need to get implemented the DRT because we're on the verge of a public financial collapse. We're on the verge of a public financial collapse. So I gotta go like that. Public financial collapse. The motive that I'm saying this is due to the fact that we now have reached record-breaking credit card debt. Record-breaking credit card debt. So the fact is that today, I don't have credit card debt myself. I got $10,000 to the RBC. But both Canada and United States, we are finding ourselves with record credit card debts, right? Record-breaking credit card debt. The problem is triple added pressure actually, that the salaries have stagnated, right? The salaries have stagnated. Isn't that beautiful colors? Go, public workers, go. I gotta sing them some of that good rock and roll. All the truckers and the bakers and the butchers and the nurses. Hey, the DRTs for us, for me, for you, for the individual, and for the collective. So we gotta implement, if not something similar to my DRT theory, we have to implement something similar to my DRT theory. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt. Right? We're gonna take. What does that say? Plus 2 equals 4. 4, 5. I guess you can 2 plus 2. We can write it equals 4, but in rainbow. But that's what it is with that. And now we need to do a lot of cleaning here. A lot of cleaning. Oh, I think I have to go. I can't go by that side. Oh no, there's no exit there. So I have to go around about it. Public workers, thank you for gonna clean all this mess up. Oh, because it was July 1st, moving day. Moving day, July 1st, so. I just remember moving. I left more in order. I had to put like 4 piles of books, and I moved with nothing really where I live now. I really had nothing, eh? I had nothing. And as an ASPE, I had many jobs, but the problem is ASPEs like myself, we have trouble with maintaining long-term employment. But I had many jobs that I loved in the past 7 years, but I moved where I live now with nothing there, you know? With nothing, so that's what it is with that, and that's what we're gonna rock and roll it. So basically, of course, what I'm going to say, what I'm going to statement, the DRT is paradoxically comes of me with being cursed with Asperger's. I present to you a blessing, which is the debt refusion theory. So listen very carefully to the DRT, which is the debt refusion theory. And in the DRT, it's important to note that, of course, is integrated the monetary integration theory, monetary integration theory, monetary integration theory, monetary integration theory, monetary integration theory. So I salute the workers here. Gotta salute workers, and have to go like that on the side, and that's how we gotta get doing with that. So basically what it is of course the debt refusion theory, DRT, debt refusion theory. So that's how we gotta get doing with that. The debt refusion theory. So the debt refusion theory is consequently, of course, integrates monetary integration theory. Monetary integration theory is, of course, the financial theory which was integrated in the European Union. So you gotta keep that in mind, you know. Keep that in mind. In my DRT, the debt refusion theory is integrated monetary integration theory, which was the theory which the European Union implemented in the 90s. The Germans destroyed their national central banks, the Italians as well, the French, many countries, right? The Belgium, other countries as well, Portugal and many countries, many countries destroyed their national central banks. They no longer have national central banks in Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, right? They have the ECB, the European Central Bank, which acts as a central bank, but for many nations. Oh, wow. Woo, what a beauty. Beautiful flowers. So my debt refusion theory integrates that theory. And again, gotta give a shout out. Public workers, tend to the public workers. That's why we got Hydro-Quebec, and that's how we got, of course, water. Civilization is a privilege, you know. That's how we got water. Otherwise, we wouldn't have water if it wasn't for them, and that's what it is. And that's why we gotta get consequential with that, and we gotta get on that XYZ, and we gotta get on the loving side of things here, you know, consequently. Look at that, makes me have flashbacks of past lives, incarnations, where it went from ancient Egypt to ancient Rome, ancient Sumer, ancient Babylon, and of course modern day. Lots of work here. See how it is? It's got a lot of rust. See the rust on it? So that rust is no good, you know, for the children. So thank you, public workers here. That's all we got. Mass public works to do, rehabilitation of the public work, which I've been calling for years, to mass rehabilitate the public works. And that's all we gotta get doing, you know. We gotta implement the DRT, the debt refusion theory, as a strategy, a bipolar strategy, not to be confused with bipolarity, the psychiatric psychological disorder, but of course to be completely fully integrated in what I'm about to say. It's a strategy, and we have to again implement it because of course we're on the verge of a public collapse, and that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing, you know. So that's what we gotta get doing on that, you know. It's something which we have to be implemented, and we have to be on the love side of things, and that's why we gotta get drilling on that, you know. Sometimes which we gotta get drill. So the DRT, thank you, public workers. So it's of course the imperial strategy, which of course we have to be implementing, you know, we gotta be implementing the imperial strategy for security, service, and defense. For security, service, and defense, something which we have to be consequential about. As I'm gonna cross the street here, gonna salute again the public workers. Gotta get some of that loving across the 63 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories. That's how we're gonna go drilling, and that's how we're gonna do. The DRT includes monetary integration theory. And the monetary, of course, integration theory is the theory which was implemented in the European Union. So the Europeans destroyed the national central bank. We're going to do the same, and again, we have to implement it because due to the fact that we now have record-breaking debts. So of course, we pay a lot of interest, and we have record-breaking credit card debts. Parallel, the triple problem is record-breaking credit card debt, and the parallel to that is also another problem, which is the prices keep increasing. The prices have not stopped increasing, right? The prices keep increasing. So the prices of goods, of cheese, of butter or milk have kept increasing, and also keep increasing now as we speak. Keep increasing now. Even now, people are swiping the credit cards, which is already maxed out. So that is some things which we have to take into consideration. So basically, due to that fact that we pay record-breaking debts, and of course, due to the fact that we pay record-breaking debts, record-breaking debts. There's no way but the DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, the DRT, the debt refusion theory. So that's all we have to do, the DRT, the debt refusion theory. So we're gonna now gonna explain it properly. And again, due to the fact that prices keep increasing, there's little choice to implement, if not my debt refusion theory, which includes monetary integration theory, something very, 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 very similar to my DRT, debt refusion theory, because the salaries are stagnated. The salaries, there's many strikes in North America since 5 years, but the average salary increase has been 4.4%. Just the bus pass increased now in July by 4.5%. My rent went up again, 7 years in a row. But I can't complain because I'm not gonna complain on my rent going up because it's in the fairness, you know. It's not what is supposed to exceed. So in terms of percentage, so I'm not gonna complain because to be honest, in my mathematical financial calculation, it is not that bad. It's not a major increase. Is below 4.4%, let's say, below 4.4%, below 4.4%, below 4.4%. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna give any other numbers. I'm financially stressed, but here is the DRT theory. So we have to implement something similar. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, my debt, your debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. So my $10,000 to the RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, your $10,000, all the debt, public and private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all the debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, their $10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all that public and private debt, we're gonna be converting it to US dollars, and it has to be implemented Canada, United States binationally because it's part of the bipolar geopolitical imperial strategy for creation of the two complementary covenant cooperative institution for the total security, service, and defense dominion of the 21st century complex. Of course, that's what we have to be doing. So the DRT has to be implemented binationally. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. So my $10,000, your $10,000, all of the debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. So all that debt, public and private debt, we're gonna convert it into US dollars, into US dollars. That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna get doing on that, and we're gonna get at that consequentially. So of course, my $10,000, your $10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all that debt is gonna be complemented, converted into US dollars, and we're gonna add the Canadian public-private debt with the United States public-private debt. So that money is gonna be the initial money supply for a new central bank. That money is going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank, which we're going to issue a new currency, which is going to have the value of the US dollar, and we're going to call it the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE, the UE, the universal exchange unit, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The universal exchange unit is going to have the value of the US dollar, the value of the US dollar. So the value of the US dollar is, of course, which is going to be the new currency. We're going to set up an interest level of 10%. It's not going to be able to be more than 10%. It's going to be able to be less than 10%, but not more than 10%. So that is going to be consequently what is going to be, of course, the new debt. It's going to be converted into US dollar. We're going to add it, of course, in a new central bank. And of course, we're going to convert this new currency, create a new currency. So that new currency is going to be, of course, on the similar context that the European Union did, similar to the DRT. That's why it includes monetary integration theory, and that's why, of course, it includes monetary integration theory. So that is something which we have to be doing on the go, and something which we have to be implementing now for the left, right, Z, and X, Y, Z, and that's what we have to be doing on the left and on the right, and we got to get doing on that, and we got to get doing for the left, and for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the grocery store clerks, all of the production, distribution of food. We're gonna get that for them, and this, the DRT, is the solution and a strategy also. So we're gonna create the UE, set an interest rate level of 10%, we won't be able to have more than 10% interest after that. With this new money, the UE, but by the implementation of my DRT theory, we're going to be able to rebuild the North American civilizational infrastructure, the bridges, the aqueducts. We're going to mass finance citizens for workout, training, and exercising, and that's what it's going to be. We're going to mass finance citizens to workout, train, exercise. We're going to mass finance citizens to work out, train, exercise as well. We're going to mass finance the construction of those 44 tunnels, the mass building of those 44 tunnels, That's how we're going to do it. So we're going to mass building the 44 tunnels. Moon's getting full in 7 days. It's full moon, which is going to last from Thursday until Sunday. Friday, day 1, Saturday, 2nd day, 3rd day. So a new cycles. And of course, that's how we're going to do. And I don't like to use my finger much because Publik, a little bit of germs, microbes, and bacteria, and I always try to keep the protocols during COVID. Please keep the protocols during COVID. Once again, the DRT, we're going to revise it. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, all the public-private debt of Canada, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all that debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to add it with the public-private debt of the United States. We're going to convert it to the US dollars. We're going to add it with the public debt of the United States. See, I don't like to. So we're going to convert it with the US dollars. We're going to convert it into US dollars. So that's what we're going to do. Now I can pass. So all the public and the private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. Wow, look at this. One of my favorite. Good job. Public workers who did this, who planned it and who planted, because the brains and the muscle behind it. With my DRT, we're going to be able to do mass embellishments of the 63, the empire, of the 10 provinces, 50 states and 3 territories. Do the math, 10 plus 50 plus 3, that's 63. And here's a nice field, anybody wants that. I go up and down these stairs 300 times. Maybe I should do a Dragon versus Trump with push-ups and go up and down, and 300 times for $300. I go up and down 300 times, $300. 300 times, $300, and you get a little bit of that beautiful yellow here in the field, and I just love this. This is new, by the way. This is public workers, and there's other stairs there, so maybe I can do both. $300, or give me $30 an hour. I go up and down for a maximum 6 hours, I guess. After 3 hours, I take a break. But I like the 300 for 3 hours, Up and down. Anybody want to finance? I'm financially stressed, broke, but I guess I could be able to do that, and that's how we got to get on that rock and roll. What a beautiful, I just love here. What a good job. Good job, public workers. LOV, rock and roll. I got money, I don't financial, but my DRT theory, we're going to have to implement it via public-private partnership, so it's a great space to revise it here as I delve in nature and civilization. We got lots of flora, fauna here, beautiful skies, and beautiful moon coming on that full moon in 7 days. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, we're going to take all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to add it with the US dollars. We're going to create this new currency called the UE, U.Universal, E.Exchange, U.Unit. All that money, look at the beautiful heavens. With all that money, with all this new currency, of course, we're going to create a new institutions. We're going to mass finance the building of the 44, and that's how we're going to building of the 44, the 44 tunnels, mass tunnel complexes, of course, for the North American Collective. In case of a thermonuclear war, that's how we're going to get drilling to build them there, and that's how we're going to get drilling with these beauties. See, look at these beauties, so beautiful here. That is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful public workers. There's a lot of job, a lot of good here. Yeah, this is nice. I just love this. I just love it. Hey, wow. Bravo, double plus, big hugs, big loving, big rock and roll. And that's another see the stairs there? Stairs going up and down there. See those stairs? That's how we're gonna get drilling, and I can go up and down those stairs 300 times for $300, or just $30 an hour. I can go up and down and sing some rock and roll for the Dragon versus Trump, and this is really nice. I really gotta give a shout out again to this beautiful. It looks like the hanging gardens. See, of course, I don't know we don't really know how they were, but for hundreds of years they were part of the 7 wonders of the world, the pyramids, I guess. Pyramids are the only one that still are really remain. The 7 wonders of the ancient world, what the pyramids are, about 4,600 years, between 4,400 and 4,600 years old. But I kind of like it how it's done here, you know. Kind of like it. It's nice, you know, how they did it like this. See, it goes in arrangements. See, it goes like this, all the way up. See, like that, tuck. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goes up like that. I don't know who the engineers were, but see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it kind of goes on the plateau up, and that's what we gotta get doing on that. That's what we gotta get drilling, man. You know, so bravo, good job with that, and that's a nice job, man. Really good. I love it here. I love this. Great work. See how it goes? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the DRT, we're gonna create the UE. Mass finance fitness, mass finance the 44 tunnels for the defense and in case of a thermonuclear war, and mass finance people, of course, to work out, train and exercise, and mass finance the 2 complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dragon Army, aka North American Imperial SSD Legion, only for security, service and defense, and the North American Integrated Dance League to dance for the environment, environmental education, an action for environmental education, an action. See those whites there? Kind of flowers with the bushes, kind of nice, eh? And now we're gonna switch it to that French, because here we are in the Belle Province, so the DRT pledge allegiance, legions. Dar family pledge allegiance, legions. Dar family pledge allegiance, legions. Dar family. For the 63, we're gonna sign September 11, I guess. We have September 11th. What do you say, September 11th? What do you say for September 11th on Mount Royal? And we're gonna build defensive complexes to be 11 times bigger than the Pentagon in the Rockies, both in Canada and United States, half-half, and here in Quebec, Montreal, in Montreal Island, to have 3 new mega centers for defense, security, service, and defense complex for the creation of the Legion of the 63 Legions of the Dragon Army, officially known the new United States Security, Service, and Defense, as we're gonna sign the Imperial Defense Legion, SSD Security, Service, and Defense Legion, as we're gonna fuse the North and the South. And now French, because we're in la Belle Province, so by the DRT as the bipolar strategy for the North American Collective. Total 21st century geopolitical dominance. We're gonna integrate the Dragon Army with all existing institutions, organizations via the new 911 Dragon Army protocols for total security, total service, total defense. French, because we're in la Belle Province, and that's all we got, and that's all we're gonna get drilling. And that's all we're gonna get drilling for now. Pledge allegiance, legions. Dar family French, because we're in la Belle Province. Et bienvenue à Québécois et Québécoises. Un petit mot ici, j'adore le travail que vous avez fait. Le travail public, c'est comme des jardins de Babylone, tu sais, ça fait comme 4 étages, là-bas c'est 4 étages, puis c'est vraiment beau. Puis juste en haut, vous avez fait des belles plantations, tantôt je dirais, mais c'est vraiment beau, un beau travail, je trouve ça vraiment beau, c'est sûr ça a pris des muscles et du cerveau, fait qu'on est jeudi le 3 juillet, je vous encourage à faire l'entraînement physique québécois et québécoise, toujours pour le Québec, la Belle Province 1 des 63 territoires de l'Empire démocratique qui va suivre dans les prochains jours, semaines à venir. Peut-être le 11 septembre, Québécois et Québécoises, je vous invite à l'appréciation, puis bien sûr, à la gratitude. La gratitude, c'est bon, c'est excellent pour la santé mentale, car toute cette belle civilisation du collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, dont le Québec en fait partie, on est un nouveau collectif émergent, et vous le savez que On n'est pas divorcé de l'Occident, mais on a des distinctions. Puis la belle lune, hein? Dans 7 jours, c'est la pleine lune. On est le 3 juillet aujourd'hui, le 10. Bien sûr, jeudi, ça va durer pour moi une fête pour la déesse. Là, avec des bisous, des câlins, des châteaux et peut-être je vais pouvoir me permettre, avec un gros budget que je suis serré des finances, ça va pas bien dans les finances, mais je suis quand même joyeux aujourd'hui. Puis en regardant cette belle civilisation, méditation de la civilisation et la géopolitique, la pleine lune s'en vient dans une semaine, puis ça dure 3 jours. Donc de jeudi à vendredi à samedi à dimanche. Fait que mercredi prochain, du gros nettoyage avant la pleine lune. C'est pas la pleine lune de Lion, mais la pleine lune du Lion s'en vient en août. Ça, c'est le lion, ça danse avec le Canada, le lion. Le ciel, je vous encourage à faire l'entraînement physique avec Québécois québécoise. Quel beau ciel, puis vous savez que j'ai l'Asperger's, donc dans certaines choses de relations sociales, dans des circonstances sociales, j'ai quand même de la difficulté. Je fais partie de cette petite minorité de citoyens, citoyennes qui vivent avec l'Asperger's, aussi connu comme l'autisme hautement fonctionnel. J'utilise encore l'Asperger's. Et bien sûr, c'est l'Asperger's, qui fait bien sûr que je suis moi-même de la situation d'aujourd'hui, que je vis de la concordance, pour le faire bien sûr de la concordance, de le faire dans ce point de presse que je vous fais, je vous dicte bien sûr dans ce point d'équilibre aujourd'hui où qu'on est rendu bien sûr à savoir bien sûr où qu'on est rendu avec ça bien sûr pour dire qu'aujourd'hui le 2025 et le 3 juillet j'ai payé mon loyer, j'ai payé ma facture d'électricité, j'ai payé mon loyer, j'ai payé ma facture d'électricité, puis j'ai du café, j'ai du thé, j'ai payé mon loyer, j'ai payé ma facture d'électricité, puis j'ai du café. J'ai acheté du café, mais en spécial, parce que l'autre café était cher. Bon, l'Asperger's, c'est pas une maladie mentale, s'il vous plaît, SVP en gros, capsule, en arc-en-ciel, s'il vous plaît, c'est pas une maladie mentale, l'Asperger's. Ce n'est pas une maladie mentale, ce n'est pas une maladie mentale, ce n'est pas une maladie mentale. C'est une condition de neurodivergence. Oui, dans certaines choses, je suis médiocre comme ça, moyen, je suis pas bon, j'ai de la misère dans certaines choses, de la compréhension sociale. Des fois, il faut nous le dire directement, on a de la misère à comprendre certaines choses. Tu sais, le non-écrit, là, quand s'en aller, quand arrêter de parler, ces choses-là, il faut nous le dire parce que moi, nous, les aspis, on a de la difficulté avec ces choses-là. Vous comprenez? À cause que notre cerveau, il y a des mutations. C'est sûr qu'elles ne sont pas visibles sur le cerveau, là, sur la tête, ces mutations-là crâniales. Là. C'est en dedans, dans le cerveau. C'est des petites, c'est microscopique. Là. C'est micro, là, c'est au niveau microscopique. C'est vraiment microscopique. Fait que nous, au niveau microscopique, on a de la misère dans certaines choses. Comme moi-même, je peux être bon dans certaines choses, dans d'autres choses, ça rentre pas, c'est difficile, vous comprenez? Parce que notre cerveau, il a ses mutations, fait qu'à cause de ces mutations, on voit le monde différemment. Mais moi, je suis quelqu'un qui n'aime pas la violence. Et oui, les Asperger's, quand on travaille, quand on étudie, quand on s'engage, quand on est entouré de nos intérêts spéciaux, aussi connu comme intérêt obsessif, mais dire obsessif, ça n'a pas de valeur pour un Asperger's parce que c'est pas vraiment une obsession dans le sens de que vous comprenez comme une obsession dans le sens de vous, quand je dis vous, la majorité des citoyens et citoyennes, vous êtes neurotypiques. Vous faites partie des 99,56%. Moi, je fais partie de cette communauté on n'est pas beaucoup là, dans le monde. Il y a bien des gens qui ne savent pas c'est quoi l'Asperger's. On est moins d'1%. Moins de la moitié, c'est 0,44%. Puis vous voyez, je pense que sur l'autobus, c'est quoi? C'est écrit 44 quelque chose. Je vais embrouiller parce que on m'avait prescrit des lunettes, là, mais je peux pas me permettre des lunettes, vraiment. Fait que bon, je voulais dire, là, vous montrer, bien sûr, vis-à-vis l'autobus, salutations aux travailleurs publics, les chauffeurs, chauffeuses, citoyens et citoyennes qui conduisent, qui chauffent l'autobus public à travers l'Amérique du Nord, Québec, Canada, États-Unis, ensemble. Et bien sûr, à travers le Québec, les États-Unis, nos frères et sœurs en uniforme, 3 automobiles, quelqu'un qu'il faut que je leur chante. Enlève que je leur chante aussi, comme je chante, bien sûr, comme je le chante, pour ceux qui font leur rédemption criminelle. Quand je vois la police, bien sûr, je s'en fais penser dans une vie antérieure, quand j'ai servi dans pas juste dans l'armée des États-Unis, dans une autre vie, des fois j'étais né homme-femme, c'est pour ça maintenant, mais vous avez les 50-50, puis j'ai servi dans la SPVM en 1904, quand j'ai rencontré Louis Cyr. J'ai fait du bras de fer avec Louis Cyr, puis pendant 7 ans. J'ai eu de la misère à l'utiliser, mais après 3 ans et demi, c'était intense, mais après ça allait mieux. J'ai dit, wow, j'aurais pas dû faire du bras de fer avec Louis Cyr, mais je chante encore du Louis Cyr, donne-moi un peu de ta force, on a besoin pour la situation géopolitique. On a besoin de Louis Cyr, puis on a besoin de Céline. C'est beau ça, et je trouve ça vraiment beau. Beau travail. Travail public, là, jaune, vous savez que j'adore ça, les fleurs jaunes moi-même. Là. Je capote. J'aime ça. Sérieusement, j'aimerais ça en amener chez nous, mais je vais pas le faire, là, c'est pour le public, tu sais. C'est sûr, j'ai un goût d'en amener comme 4 chez nous, là, mais pour mon ami anonyme, là. Les travailleurs qui chauffent le train. C'est vraiment beau, je trouve, là. Hey, c'est vraiment beau, vous avez tout mis ça, là. Hey, c'est vraiment nice. Écœurant, belle couleur, là. Fleurs jaunes, là. Beau travail. Travail public, moi j'apprécie bien ça, vous avez fait ici, puis c'est jusqu'au bout, là. Je sais pas, ça donne de la fraîcheur, là, ça fait sentir bien, là, je sais pas. L'embellissement de les villes, tu sais, c'est beau, je trouve. Si vous n'avez pas de jardin chez vous, mais vous pouvez venir ici, puis mettre dans un jardin public. Ceux-là aussi sont belles, en tout cas. Fait que là, on continue, puis on va rentrer par ici. Fait qu'on va rentrer par ici, par la forêt, on y va. On fait l'entraînement physique, hey, c'est beau ça, man. Messieurs, madame, c'est beau ces fleurs-là. Que vous l'avez planté, que vous soyez messieurs, madame comme moi-même ou pas, soyez Asperger's ou pas, il faut bâtir toujours des ponts. J'encourage mon cousin et mes cousines à faire de l'entraînement physique. Depuis 2017, moi-même, j'en fais de l'entraînement physique. Et bien sûr, je vois le train, bien sûr. Le train, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que je dois saluer parce que là, vous voyez comment mon cerveau fonctionne. À cause que je viens de voir le train, moi, en tant qu'Asperger's, puis encore une fois, l'Asperger's, l'autisme, mon monde fonctionnel, c'est pas une maladie mentale. Nous, on a certains intérêts spéciaux. Et moi-même, c'est la trinité d'intérêts spéciaux que j'ai. C'est la géopolitique, l'entraînement physique, la danse, le sport que je préfère. C'est la danse. Même maintenant, je suis en train de faire de la chorégraphie de danse avec ma tête, la langue, la bouche, les orteils, puis vice-versa. Puis le rock&roll. Puis je suis toujours dans ces 3 choses-là au quotidien. Soit des études en géopolitique, c'est des analyses, des théories et bien sûr des stratégies. Et vous voyez maintenant que je viens de voir le train, puis je m'approche de l'autoroute et je vois les camions. Moi, je fais des méditations, des analyses théoriques et des stratégies de défense. Seulement pour la défense, pour l'Amérique du Nord. Parce qu'en tant qu'analyste théoricien, stratège de la géopolitique, cette déclaration que je vous déclare maintenant, 2 déclarations que je vais faire. Moi, en 2019, puis pour cela, j'ai la preuve, j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant. En 2019, en octobre-novembre, j'avais prévu qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale à l'avenir. C'est ça qui se passe depuis 3 ans et demi. Puis bien sûr, le paramètre, bien sûr, c'était dû au fait qu'il y a des conflits qui n'ont pas été... Il n'y a pas eu de résolution du 20e siècle. Du 20e siècle, ces conflits-là n'ont pas eu de résolution finale. Tu sais, les conflits du 20e siècle n'ont pas eu de résolution finale. Surtout durant la guerre froide. Qui a duré quand même quasiment 45 ans, entre mars 1947 et fin décembre 1991. Fait que c'est quasiment 45 ans, il y en a qui disent 47, 46. Moi, je marque 44 ans et 9 mois. Et là, il faut que je fasse attention parce que si le chien j'ai la difficulté, des fois j'éternue avec le poil de chien, si c'est pas des poudres, là, j'éternue quand même, fait que je dois juste me faire aviser. Puis avec ça, on peut faire des jus, par exemple, mettez ça dans un bac, là, puis je vais peut-être venir m'en prendre ici en fin de semaine, puis en faire. Bon, mais, fait que c'est juste que j'ai une vigilance s'il y a des chiens qui sont pas en laisse, là, mais juste, s'il n'y a pas des enfants, c'est correct, là, mais comme ça, juste à moins qu'il y ait une couvre-gueule dessus, là, mais ma citoyenne, concitoyen, cousine, ma tante, qui que ce soit, ma famille ici du Québec, des États-Unis, vous considérez comme ma famille, c'est ça. Fait que quand je dis comme ça, mais la cousine, tante, c'est ce que je vous considère comme ma famille, tu sais. Fait que c'est cette chose-là, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je fasse dans ces choses-là pour le faire, bien sûr, dans un point de contention, bien sûr, où que je suis rendu aujourd'hui à faire, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence. Mais c'est sûr que moi, j'aime pas la violence, mais je suis hyper vigilant, tu sais. Je suis hyper vigilant, mais c'est des choses, bien sûr, que je dois le faire dans ce point de convergence. Fait que dans ce point de convergence auquel je suis rendu, bien sûr, c'est des choses que... Hop, voilà. Et, ouais. Je suis hyper vigilant parce que je l'ai vécu, la violence. Je me suis fait attaquer par surprise, là. Je suis tombé, je connais ma tête sur le ciment, puis j'avais le bras droit disloqué. Il faut que je vais aller peut-être lundi à l'hôpital général juif, puis j'avais le bras droit disloqué, c'était l'épaule, là. J'étais tout ensanglé, puis j'étais tombé, je connais ma tête. Quel beau ciel, là. Quel beau ciel. Et quel beau ciel. Beau ciel, là, beau ciel, là, beau ciel, là. Et bien sûr, j'étais tout ensanglé. J'étais mis sur des médicaments, j'étais comme dans un coma, tu sais. J'étais dans un coma pendant bien des jours, là. À cause de ces médicaments, peut-être. C'était pendant la douleur. Pas beaucoup de mémoire avant ma vie, avant. Comme 2014, j'ai comme l'amnésie rétrograde, j'ai des symptômes, je sais pas ce que je... Avant ma vie, avant cet événement, où j'habitais à Côte-des-Neiges, dans une... C'était comme une petite cellule de prison, là, beaucoup de moisissures, puis il y avait beaucoup de moisissures dans cette petite prison, tu sais. Mais c'était pas une prison, là, en tant que prison, c'était où j'habitais dans un sous-sol, mais parce que c'était tellement petit, là, ça faisait penser comme dans une cellule, tu sais, où t'étais enfermé, puis en punition, là, solidaire, puis isolation, là, genre. Puis il y avait beaucoup de moisissures, puis... J'ai déménagé, d'après qu'on sait, c'est en 2010. En 2010. Puis je pensais peut-être que c'était 2016, mais c'est possible que c'était en 2010. J'ai déménagé où j'habite là avec rien. Je suis en dépression, j'étais suicidaire, puis ces problèmes-là, on vit beaucoup, nous, les Aspergers, les Aspi. Le problème, bien sûr, de... Le taux de suicide et de dépression est très élevé. 9 fois plus. 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 Neuf fois plus. Puis un autre problème, c'est le manque d'amis, mais c'est pour ça que je déclare toujours, mais j'ai pas besoin d'amis pour les choses superficielles, là. Hey, c'est beau, ça. Hey, c'est rose, là. Hey, c'est rose, ça. J'ai jamais vu de rose de même. D'habitude, c'est en rouge. Hey, c'est vraiment cute. C'est rose, wow. Hey, toute une faune et fleurs qui viennent de renaître ici, hein. Wow. Hey, c'est rose, ça. Hey, j'ai jamais vu ce rose de même. C'est vraiment beau. Qu'est-ce qu'on retrouve dans la nature, des fois, c'est merveilleux. Quand je viens ici, je m'endors. J'adore la ville, bien sûr, je suis de Montréal dans cette vie, puis dans une autre, bien sûr, mais j'aime ça, les gratte-ciel, puis le centre-ville, mais j'aime bien la nature aussi, les deux, ça en prend des deux un peu pour l'équilibre. Ben, le problème chez les Aspergers, encore, c'est 3 problèmes. On n'a pas beaucoup d'amis, puis depuis maintenant, on est le 3 juillet 2025, mais les amis avec bénéfice seulement. Hein. Je fais partie de la communauté LGBTQ, mais je suis aussi neurodivergent, mais puis je me cherche toujours des opportunités de travail parce que j'adore ça le travail, mais malheureusement, chez les Aspi, c'est ça le problème, c'est que le taux de chômage, c'est inacceptable, là, par exemple, c'est 80%, là. des Asperger. Puis nous, on n'est pas une grosse communauté, c'est moins d'1%, là, moins de la moitié d'un pourcentage, c'est 0,44% des citoyens qui ont l'Asperger's. Donc, c'est ça le problème, c'est 80% là, des citoyennes avec l'Asperger's n'ont pas d'emploi. C'est inacceptable, c'est 4 sur 5. C'est 11 fois plus que vous, la plupart des gens, que vous êtes à 99,56%. Puis moi-même, j'ai eu bien de l'emploi, j'ai bien aimé, tu sais. Mais le problème, c'est que nous, des fois, les Asperger's, les Aspi, on est direct. On dit des choses directes, on peut être honnête, on peut offenser dans certaines choses qu'on dit. C'est juste qu'on ne sait pas, il faut nous le dire. Si je vous offense, bien, vous dites-moi, arrêtez de parler, je vous offense, that's it, that's all. Pas besoin de me faire une grosse histoire. Je ne sais pas, les choses sociales, des choses comme ça, il faut me le dire, tu sais. Surtout, je vais vous donner un exemple concret. Tu sais, la distanciation, l'espace personnel, tu sais, à prendre des distances de 2-3 mètres de quelqu'un, tu sais, 2-3 pieds. Mais nous, les Aspi, on a tendance à s'approcher vraiment proche de la personne quand on discute. Fait que ces choses-là peuvent provoquer de l'inquiétude, peuvent provoquer un malaise, un malheur, peuvent provoquer quelque chose un ressentiment d'insécurité aussi, là. Moi, j'aime pas la violence, j'aime pas ces choses-là. Hey, c'est blanc, ça. Hey, on dirait de la neige. Oui, on est en été, parlez-moi pas de la neige. On est en été, on se bronze. On est en été, on se bronze, parlez-moi pas de la neige. Québécoise, on est en été, on se bronze. Parlez-moi pas de la neige. Mais c'est quand même, on dirait, hein, les flocons, hey, c'est beau, ça. Hey, c'est vraiment cute, sérieusement, là, j'adore. I love it! J'adore. OK, fait que c'est ça l'Asperger's, pour en finir, pas pour en parler trop de temps là-dessus, mais c'est ça. Je dois dire des salutations à mon ami anonyme, que bien sûr, à cause d'un livre, hein, qu'on m'avait prêté, bien sûr, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que moi-même, j'ai dû apprendre beaucoup de choses sur moi-même, c'est venir à divergence, que moi-même... Hey, c'est des fleurs, ça. Regardez ça. Je vais les sentir un peu, ceux-là. Ah non, ils sont mouillés. Je vais les laisser tranquilles. Mais je t'ai curieux de savoir juste, sentir un peu. Moi, ça sent un peu de la riz, là. Mais hey, c'est des belles fleurs ici, tu sais. C'est des belles fleurs, bien sûr, qu'on rencontre. D'autres belles fleurs, tu sais. C'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'on rencontre dans l'affaire de faire l'entraînement physique ici. Quand je vois les gens, j'adore voir ça, du monde qui jogue. Puis moi-même, je viens souvent ici. Puis c'est une belle place pour que vous venez jogger, vous faites l'entraînement physique, tu sais. C'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je le fasse. Wow! Juste à regarder un peu. T'sais. Oh, celle-là. Avec celle-là, vous pouvez faire du jus. Avec celle-là, vous pouvez faire du jus, tu sais. Avec celle-là, vous pouvez faire du jus. Wow! Hey, c'est gros, ça. C'est beau, ça. Ça sent tellement bon, ça. Ça, là, c'est du elderberry juice. Il faut que je le check c'est quoi en français, mais en anglais, c'est elderberry. Elderberry. Fait que c'est du elderberry juice, bien sûr, puis c'est des choses, bien sûr, que vous pouvez vérifier vous-même. Fait que moi, je vais vous présenter maintenant tout de suite la théorie de la refusion de la dette parce que c'est mieux que je vous discute ça parce que ça vient de la malédiction de l'Asperger's. Puis encore une fois, je vais parler de la géopolitique, évidemment, ma théorie et stratégie parce que c'est ça que je suis, c'est ça que je fais mon travail en tant qu'Asperger, c'est ça mon intérêt spécial, aussi connu comme obsessif, mais ça sert à rien de dire obsessif parce qu'obsessif, encore une fois, est super concentré comment je le suis, puis intense, puis super dedans comment je le suis. Quand je discute, quand j'étudie, puis quand je fais des théories de stratégie de défense de la géopolitique pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, c'est sûr ça s'applique pas. Ça s'applique pour quelqu'un qui n'est pas neurodivergent, qui n'a pas l'Asperger's, dire obsessif. Fait intérêts spéciaux. Puis dans cet intérêt spécial, bien sûr, moi-même, je dois faire, bien sûr, dans cet intérêt spécial, quelque chose comme moi-même, je dois avoir de la visibilité à dire que ben des Aspi, ben des Aspergers sont bien sûr ben des Aspergers qui ont ces forces complémentaires à des forces qu'on n'a pas. Tu sais, qu'on a de la misère dans les relations sociales, ou dans d'autres choses qu'on n'est pas si bon, médiocre comme ci, comme ça. Fait que quand ça vient de la géopolitique, je vous présente la stratégie bipolaire. Ne pas confondre la stratégie bipolaire que je vous discute avec la bipolarité. Bien sûr, qu'est-ce que c'est d'être bipolaire du point de vue de psychologie, de psychiatrie? T'sais? La stratégie bipolaire pour la domination géopolitique du 20e siècle par la fusion du Canada des États-Unis, par l'implémentation de ma TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, puis la théorie d'intégration citoyenne, puis la théorie de fusion démocratique. La théorie de la fusion démocratique. Fait que cette trinité de théorie Puis maintenant, je vais discuter la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. La théorie de la refusion de la dette. C'est ça, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je le fasse principalement. La TRD, c'est la T, théorie à refusion de la dette. La théorie de la refusion de la dette, bien sûr, c'est la théorie qui intègre la théorie d'intégration monétaire, ce qui est la théorie financière que les Européens ont fait l'implémentation dans les années 90 par la création de la Banque centrale européenne, puis par la mise en circulation de l'euro. Waouh, quel beau ciel! C'est le paradis en haut. C'est le paradis en haut, le bleu ciel, regarde. Waouh! Waouh! Hey! Des fois, il faut que je regarde. Fait que je vais marcher en arrière, les pas, puis regarder vers le ciel quand je discute la TRD. Fait que la TRD, ça contient cette théorie, ça fait partie intégrale de faire l'implémentation au Canada et aux États-Unis. Puis il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation de cette théorie. Pourquoi je me prononce ainsi? Car vous faites bien sûr que nous, là où on est rendu maintenant, on est rendu dans une proche d'avoir une crise financière, car le prix de les coûts là, de tout, du café, du lait, du pain, du beurre, des saucisses, de tout, là, même le loyer, moi aussi, ça a augmenté de 4 points. Je ne vais pas dire là, combien je paye, là, mais je veux dire que c'est correct. Je ne peux pas me plaindre, là, parce que c'est quand même quelque chose que... Je dis c'est adéquat, c'est quoi, 4,4 là? C'est exactement qu'est-ce que, bien sûr, 4,4 c'est qu'est-ce que la STM, Société de transport de Montréal, parce que ça a augmenté par 4,50 $, ce qui équivaut à peu près 4,5 Puis 4,4, là, 4,5, ils ont augmenté de 100 $, le coût du... tu sais, la passe d'autobus mensuelle pour tu vas à Montréal par l'autobus puis par le métro, c'était 100 $ en juin. Puis là, pour le mois de juillet, dès le 1er juillet, c'est rendu à 104,50 $. Fait que ça équivaut à 4,5 Fait que mon loyer, ça a quand même augmenté parallèlement. Fait que c'est pas un gros montant que je dois contester parce que c'est quand même juste, là, c'est pas un gros, là, c'est pas une grosse augmentation personnellement. C'est sûr que moi-même, je vis bien sûr un stress financier, mais ça s'applique de cette manière que je dis que c'est pas vraiment quelque chose qui va me... Je suis déjà stressé financièrement, mais je vais pouvoir le mettre dans le budget, le 4,4 d'augmentation là, que ça a été. Fait que... For you, ça veut dire, for you, there's no changing old habits. For you, there's no changing. For me, there has been a lot. I don't know what I was doing prior to 2014. Maybe I was an alcoholic or doing some hard drugs that I lost retrograde amnesia, that I lost memory. But of course, that I lost memory or whatever the case may be by the trauma. But of course, I changed a lot and I'm changing constantly and I've been changing since I got out of being depressed. Ça veut dire qu'il n'y a pas de changer les vieilles habitudes. Je suis pas d'accord avec ça, moi. Moi, je suis pas d'accord. Peut-être pour vous, pour toi qui a écrit ça, on peut pas changer les vieilles habitudes. Pour moi, ça s'applique pas, ça. Moi, j'ai bien changé, surtout bien sûr que j'ai accepté mon Asperger's, mon autisme hautement fonctionnel. C'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que moi aussi, j'ai accepté avoir l'Asperger's de cette manière de différence pour que je sois, bien sûr, dans le point de contingence où je vis maintenant, dans l'affaire puis dans l'histoire, où que je me retrouve principalement maintenant en crise financièrement, mais c'est sûr que dans cette crise financièrement, c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je le fasse, des conséquences pour moi-même. Et regardez le beau ciel, wow! Et c'est beau ça! Wow! Et c'est super beau ça, je dois chanter du Rock&Roll. Puis ça, on va faire des cadences. Fait que là, je vous explique que bien sûr la théorie de la refusion de la dette, théorie de la refusion de la dette, théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est des choses bien sûr qu'il faut que je fasse moi-même dans ce point de circonstance, bien sûr, à l'être de la mort, pour être bien sûr dans ce point de contingence, pour le faire bien sûr dans ce point de situation où que je suis rendu maintenant. Mais c'est la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, bien sûr, pour le faire dans la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Mais regardez le beau ciel, regardez le beau ciel. Et des fois, on se donne tellement d'importance, puis on dit, on regarde en haut comment on n'est rien, tu sais. Mais on n'est pas rien, c'est sûr qu'on est des gens qui aiment, puis j'aime ça voir les gens qui s'aiment, puis j'aime ça faire de la charité, mais je dois être vigilant moi-même, parce que vous voyez, moi, je suis différent, fait que à cause de ce livre, j'ai lu, apprécié l'Asperger's, je connais mes vulnérabilités. Fait que je suis vulnérable aussi maintenant, mais j'ai tellement appris sur comment je suis différent, puis comment pour pas être exploité, tu sais, pour pas être abuser pour faire des choses-là parce que les Aspergers ont vu ces choses-là. Le bleu ciel, comment que c'est beau ça. Des fois, ça, on juste regarder en haut un peu et dire waouh, hey, on est tout un privilège ici sur la ville de Montréal, le Québec. Toutes les choses qu'on a, bien sûr. Toutes les choses qu'on a, toutes les choses qu'on a, toutes les choses qu'on a. C'est des choses, bien sûr, que je dois le méditer moi-même dans le point de contingence ici. Quelle beauté, tu sais. Quelle beauté, quelle beauté, quelle beauté. C'est le point de contingence, bien sûr, de cet événement où je me retrouve. Et aujourd'hui, moi, je dois regarder, je vais marcher en arrière de même, là, puis je vais discuter de la TRD. Parce que c'est un paradoxe. Parce que je vous présente la table, la théorie de la refusion de la dette. Puis moi-même, je suis en stress financièrement. À cause de l'Asperger, j'ai perdu bien des jobs, bien de l'emploi, bien de l'opportunité. J'ai eu bien de l'emploi. J'ai bien aimé durant les 7 ans, là, même durant la COVID, à la CHSLD, en Acier, puis dans d'autres places. C'est sûr que j'ai aimé ça. Mais je suis différent, puis cette différence, ça en fait partie que je fais partie de cette petite communauté de 0,44%, aussi parallèlement à la communauté LGBTQ. Mais dans la communauté LGBTQ, il y a 5 à 7%, il y a 5 à 7%, il y a 5 à 7%, il y a 5 à 7%. 5 à 7%, fait que dans ce point de contingence, nous qu'on est rendu, waouh, quel beau ciel. Je capote, sérieusement, là, c'est tellement d'une beauté, oui. Je vais devoir chanter, je vais discuter la TRD, puis je vais chanter. Fait que la TRD, je vous présente sur la table. Théorie de la refusion de la dette, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation de la TRD. Fait que, pourquoi que je dis qu'il faut faire l'implémentation de la TRD? À cause, bien sûr, que on est rendu à payer tellement d'intérêts, puis pas seulement l'intérêt, mais c'est pas juste une question de l'intérêt qu'on paye sur la dette, mais les prix, ils n'arrêtent pas, ils augmentent à chaque jour, quasiment à chaque semaine, ils augmentent. Les prix des biens, puis les salaires, ils stagnent. Il y a une stagnation des salaires, c'est pour ça qu'il y a bien des grèves qui se passent. Tu sais, les gens, les unions, bien sûr, les unions, bien sûr, c'est une chose de grève, puis des choses comme ça, puis des choses de grève qui se passent, qui se trouvent dans ce point de contingence, puis des choses, bien sûr, qu'on vit avec. Ça, on peut faire du jeu avec ça. On peut faire du jus avec ça, c'est beau ça. Fait qu'on va se tourner, bien sûr, vers le ciel. Si vous regardez le ciel, comment c'est beau, hein? Checkez ça. Hey, tout un beau ciel. C'est quelque chose qu'il faut regarder de temps en temps en haut, juste pour voir. Même si je suis en stress financièrement, ça n'a pas de prix, ça, vraiment. La mère nature, la déesse qui danse avec son frère, le soleil. Je ne rentrerai pas dans un mystique, là, mais bien sûr, je suis un mystique, j'ai pas toutes les réponses de mon imprimateur, ça va être plus la comédie puis du rock&roll, ma spiritualité, là, que d'autres choses, mais c'est sûr que j'ai le soleil puis la nature qui nous englobe, puis la civilisation, c'est un privilège, hein. C'est un gros privilège. Tu sais, avoir les centrales électriques, l'Hydro-Québec, qui ont fait le travail à Bay James et par toutes les 63 centrales qui ont été bâties, ça me fait penser à les 63 qu'on va fusionner par l'implémentation de ma TRD. Fait que là, la TRD, ben, TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Fait qu'on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, toute la dette publique-privée. On va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, tu sais. Ouais, vous avez débarbouillé un peu ici, je trouve. Bon. Fait qu'un peu trop excessif. Fait que c'est des choses, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je le fasse moi-même dans ce point de convergence, dans ce point de contingence que je suis rendu, bien sûr, à faire ici, dans cette place, bien sûr, pour que je me retrouve de discuter de la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Fait que je vous la discute maintenant, bien sûr, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, hey, on n'a pas le choix. Ou quelque chose qui ressemble à ma TRD, quelque chose qui ressemble à ma TRD, c'est quelque chose qu'il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation, bien sûr, de la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Bien sûr, la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, ça inclut la théorie d'intégration monétaire, il faut qu'on le fasse. On va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, mon 10 000, ton 10 000 de côte à côte, on va faire l'addition ensemble, toute cette dette-là, on va faire la conversion dans la devise des États-Unis, on va faire l'addition, on va rajouter, on va faire l'addition avec la devise des États-Unis, 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 ouais. Avec la devise des États-Unis. Fait que tout cet argent-là, Ça va fonder une nouvelle banque centrale, binationale. Ça fait partie de la stratégie intègre, stratégie bipolaire. Pas être confondu avec la psychiatrie et la psychologie, mais bipolaire de la géopolitique. Ma stratégie bipolaire pour la domination impériale par la fusion du Canada et des États-Unis par l'implémentation de ma TRD. Pour être un titre plus académique là, du point de vue de la géopolitique, c'est ça la stratégie bipolaire. Puis ça intègre ma stratégie telle que la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette que je viens de mentionner. Aussi le nouveau protocole de 9.1 de Dragon Arc-en-Ciel pour la défense, pour la sécurité et le service au 21e siècle. Ça, c'est des philosophies. Fait qu'on va prendre toutes des philosophies et des théories qui doivent être mises en pratique. Fait que toute la dette publique privée avec les États-Unis, on va fonder une nouvelle banque. Une nouvelle banque. Une nouvelle banque. On va faire la création de l'UI, l'unité d'échange universelle, UI. L'unité d'échange universelle, UI. L'unité d'échange universelle aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. Du dollar des États-Unis. Avec cet argent-là, on va faire des réparations à travers le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord. Quand on va se fusionner, on va faire un gros recensement. On va finir avec la frontière. On va financer les 44 tunnels, construire 44 tunnels dans le cas d'une guerre thermonucléaire à travers les 63, les 10 provinces, 50 États et 3 territoires. Et bien sûr, on va faire d'autres théories pratiques et mises en constitution, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence qu'on a rendu. Fait que cette théorie, la TRD, on va la mettre en pratique. C'est la théorie de la défense totale. Et bien sûr, pour la création de cette nouvelle monnaie qu'on va appeler l'UI, U.unité, U.échange, ou P universel, U.unité, U.échange universel, U.unité, U.échange universel. On va rebâtir l'infrastructure du Québec, du Canada, des États-Unis. Et bien sûr, on va faire du bien commun. On va pouvoir financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, financer les gens au tourisme, financer les gens, bien sûr, à faire de l'entraînement physique. Financer les gens au tourisme. Financer. On va faire un recensement commun. On va finir avec la frontière. Et bien sûr, on va faire une union, une fusion, une nouvelle monnaie. Bien sûr, un passeport commun, bien sûr. Fait que c'est des choses qu'on va faire ensemble dans cette constitution. Prêtez allégeance, Légion. Vous êtes famille. Maintenant, on s'en va vers les cadences. Cadence. Let's go, we're gonna get that main out. And again, on va finir avec l'unité d'échange universelle. U.unité, U.échange universel. On va faire la création de cette nouvelle monnaie comme qu'ils ont fait en Europe par la création et la mettant en pratique la théorie d'intégration monétaire. Ce qui, la théorie d'intégration monétaire est intégrée dans ma TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Donc, avec ça, on va pouvoir financer les gens d'entraînement physique ou tourisme pour la création, bien sûr, de l'esprit de solidarité. Parce que moi, quand j'ai traversé le Canada de côte à côte, en 2017, cet événement, ça m'a fait établir un esprit de corps solide avec le Québec, le Canada et les États-Unis, bien sûr. Et cet événement, bien sûr, ça m'a fait sortir de ma dépression, bien sûr. Et bien sûr, c'est des choses que moi-même, je dois faire mes validations pour cet événement qu'on va faire, l'implémentation de ma TRD, puis on va financer les gens au tourisme à travers le Québec, les 10 provinces, 50 États et 3 territoires. On va finir il n'y aura plus de frontières. On va faire cette stratégie impériale pour la défense du collectif de l'Amérique du Nord parce qu'on constitue une civilisation nouvelle. Et dans cette collectif de civilisation, on a fait le grand compromis du français, qu'on continue à le faire. Il faut que je fasse un effort moi-même en tant qu'individu, en tant que citoyenne, si moi je ne le fais pas, l'effort, il faut le faire, un effort pour le français, mais pour du rock-and-roll, des théories et des stratégies pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, mais il faut qu'on se fusionne, on va continuer bien sûr à parler le français, puis à constituer cette stratégie impériale, de défense impériale. Il faut bien sûr qu'on le fasse ensemble, Québécois et Québécoises, prêter allégeance Légion pour l'Empire. Démocratique, républicain, centriste, pro-travail. On va bâtir plus de centrales Hydro-Québec On a du travail à faire, mes chers, de côte à côte pour la sécurité, service, défense. L'armée du dragon complémentaire avec l'armée de la déesse qui danse, soit l'armée, la Légion des 63. Pour la sécurité, service, défense de Montréal à San Francisco, puis là en haut, avec l'armée de la déesse qui danse, l'armée intégrée de la danse de l'Amérique du Nord pour l'environnement, pour le collectif de l'environnement. Bien sûr, pour le collectif de l'environnement. Prêtez allégeance, Légion, vous êtes famille. Pour que je le fasse, pour le faire de la gauche et de la droite. Hey, Québécois, Québécoises, si vous ne me parlez pas d'amour, je deviens sourd. Si vous ne me parlez pas de rock'n'roll, je veux rien savoir. Si vous ne me parlez pas de l'Empire, ben, salut, bonjour, merci, bonjour. On y va. Cadence, get ready.